Welcome to a meeting of your Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. Representing District 1, Sandra Murman. Representing District 2, Victor Christ. Representing District 3, Les Miller. Representing District 4, Stacy White. Representing Countywide District 5, Ken Hagan. Representing Countywide District 6, Pat Kemp. Representing Countywide District 7, Al Higginbotham. The County Administrator is Mike Merrill. The County Attorney is Chip Fletcher. Time is set aside at the beginning of each meeting for citizens to speak on any issue. So we have time for everyone. Speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Today's meeting is brought to you with closed captioning by Hillsborough Television.
Thank you, and good morning again. I want to welcome everyone to your Hillsborough County Board of County Commission meeting. It is Wednesday, March 21st, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation from our chaplain, Commissioner Stacy White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, we'd like to thank you for the folks from the Tampa Bay area who do great things, go on to do great things, and represent our community well and make us proud. We pray, as always, Lord, that you will guide this board, our staff, and our stakeholders as we make critical decisions this morning. And as always, Lord, we ask that you will put your healing and comforting hand on our first responders throughout the nation and members of our military, and guide them, keep them safe, and deliver them home safely. We ask for all these things in your heavenly name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner White, and especially with another school shooting up in, I think, Baltimore. It was another harsh reminder of how important our first responders are. There are no memos of absence in the record today. We have 3 presentations, and Commissioner White's going to begin with a special commendation.
Well, I must say that this is one of the neatest, coolest, if I can use an informal word, proclamations that I've had a chance to present to date as a commissioner. And I think Commissioner Hagan's going to be somewhat jealous of the fact that I get to present this one this morning. I have with me this morning a young man, I guess I can still call you a young man, that plays for Clemson University and is a wide receiver on the 2016 National Championship team. And he has his family with him. That's Ray McDonald. Ray, I'd like to invite you and your family up to receive this. McCloud, rather. I'm sorry. McCloud, sorry. A little nervous this morning. Ray McCloud, excuse me. Ray, I'm a University of Florida graduate and admittedly an SEC guy, but I've got to tell you, it did not bother me one bit to see Clemson win that 2016 National Championship. Yep. You want to go ahead and, you want me to call your family up, or you want to introduce them, or? Okay. Because I have a list here. I'd like to invite them up. We have, of course, Ray McCloud III with us. Ray McCloud Jr., his father. Lisa McCloud, his mother. Jordan McCloud, brother. You guys come on up. Feel free to come on up. Kobe McCloud, also his brother, Jay McCloud, sister, Ray McCloud Sr., his grandfather, Juanita McCloud, his grandmother, okay, Marquise Levat, did I get that right? And Derek Jackson, his agent, if I'm not mistaken. Come on up, everybody, come on up. Tell you what, it's my understanding that we still have a few folks coming through security, so we can wait for them. We'd like. I'll just say before I get to the proclamation that, or this is a commendation rather, that my wife's grandmother, Granny Johnson, was always a big Clemson fan. We have no ties to the state of South Carolina or to Clemson, but she decided one day that she loves Clemson and was always a Clemson football fan. We always enjoyed that. And it's my understanding that you've declared for the 2018 NFL draft, so who knows, maybe we'll see you playing here in Tampa on Sundays. So.
She just said she's walking in.
Okay.
You can go.
Okay, we good? All right, so I'll go ahead and read this commendation for Ray McCloud III. Ray's here this morning for this commendation because he came up through our rec programs, through our Parks and Recreation Department, and he is definitely testament to the fact that those programs allow kids to come up and do big things in life, and this young man is certainly testament to the fact that we can really see some outstanding outcomes through our rec programs. The Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners is pleased to recognize Ray McCloud III for his accomplishments as a student athlete who participated in numerous Hillsborough County programs, engagement that helped him excel in football and earn a college scholarship. A Tampa native, Mr. McCloud eagerly took part in programs conducted by Hillsborough County Parks and Recreation from the time he began elementary school until he graduated from middle school. These programs included after-school events, summer camps, and basketball and flag football leagues that helped Mr. McCloud develop athletic and social skills. Mr. McCloud became a record-setting running back at Sickles High School, winning the 2014 Guy Toff Award as Hillsborough County's best football player as a senior. He was honored with the Tyrone Keys Community Service Award by Unsigned Preps, an organization that helps student athletes become well-rounded. Mr. McCloud's achievement earned him a football scholarship to Clemson University, where his memorable career included helping the Tigers win the 2016 College Football Playoff National Championship right here in Tampa. The Board of County Commissioners of Hillsborough County, Florida, does hereby commend Ray McCloud III for his success on the football field and in the community, and wishes him much success at the 2018 National Football League Draft in April. And it's, of course, awarded today, the 21st of March, signed by all 7 commissioners. And we'd love to have you say a few words if you'd like. Congratulations. Yes, sir.
I wasn't prepared for this. First and foremost, I want to thank my Lord and Savior, God and Jesus Christ. And secondly, I want to thank my parents just for raising me to be a respectful, humble young man and helping me get to where I'm at and be able to attend those recreations in Hillsborough County community and be able to keep me level-headed and grounded. And so to help me get to Clemson, to help me get through high school and be able to achieve these goals and be able to be up here and help me be a great leader for my brothers. They're not here right now as well, but my little sister's up here, and just going to rec and just being able to play sports in a great community in Hillsborough County helped me get to where I'm at as well. Playing, I went to Bellamy Rec out in town and country, and I played every sport there. I mean, dodgeball, if that's even a sport, but just going there and be able to build a competitive edge and be able to play at Sickles really helped me grow and become a great athlete, even a better human being and a person. And wouldn't want to do none of this in no other community. And I want to thank you all for this award and more to accomplish in this community. God bless. Thank you for having me. Y'all have a great day.
I will present our next proclamation. Always very pleased when we're able to do this proclamation each year to one of our stellar partners in the community, Moffitt Cancer Center. And Commissioner Miller, I know that he recognizes them quite often, really, for the great work that you do. And so I'm pleased to do this proclamation today. And is Dr. Cox here? Come on forward. He is the Industry Alliance Development Manager for Moffitt's Office of Innovation and Industry Alliances. We have Merritt Martin here. She's the Director of Public Affairs with Moffitt Cancer Center. Of course, Jamie Wilson, he is here. And we've invited you here to recognize Moffitt Cancer Center's 12th successful annual Business of Biotech Conference, which was actually held a few weeks ago on March 2nd. And before I read the proclamation, I'd like to share a very short video with you that's certainly worth 1,000 words that really tells a story.
It is my honor and pleasure to welcome all of you to the 12th Annual Business of Biotech event. We have a phenomenal program today.
Business of Biotech Conference is a very interesting conference. It brings together some terrific researchers here in Moffitt in the South Florida area, as well as our industry partners across the country.
We are really excited to have Dr. Francis Cuss with us. He's the former Chief Scientific Officer of Bristol-Myers Squibb.
Your own immune system, which recognizes your tumor, which if it mutates, in theory at least, the immune system should go after it.
I attend many international conferences, but what is special about this conference here is actually the atmosphere, and that it is actually smaller, which actually is a benefit because that means I can get to talk to many people, not just casual hello, but actually have a more in-depth conversation.
When Lee Moffitt had the dream of this institution, I would dare say that he never thought that we would be eventually creating a world-class cancer research facility that is a magnet for intellectual capital. It's a magnet for partnerships.
You're bringing together some of the country's experts, and anytime you do that, some remarkable sparks can happen and new relationships can be formed. And it's often those relationships that drive innovation in the field.
It makes it worthwhile if we can make a difference for our community. You certainly are making a difference. We want to give you the opportunity to make a difference.
There's no way that we could move the needle on preventing and curing cancer if it were not for everybody in the room here. There's scientists, there's entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, people from industry. It really does take an entire village to be successful. So all of you are important.
That was awesome. So thank you. And thanks for providing that. You know, we have this dream of building a biotech hub, and you are certainly the center of influence, definitely, in that goal. So we're looking forward to the future very much. And I'll read the proclamation. It says, whereas biotechnology is vital to Florida's diversifying economy, and Moffitt Cancer Center's research and innovations are fueling this burgeoning industry. Whereas since 2004, research at Moffitt Cancer Center has resulted in 97 United States patents, along with hundreds of commercial licensing agreements and the creation of 9 active biotech startup companies. Whereas Moffitt Cancer Center hosted the 12th Annual Business of Biotech Conference with the theme of Discovering Tomorrow's Cancer Cures at Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa on March 2nd, 2018. Whereas the Business of Biotech Conference showcased medical innovation and research throughout the Tampa Bay region, bringing together biomedical companies, startups, service providers, entrepreneurs, and investors for networking and partnership discussions. Whereas the Business of Biotech Conference featured breakout sessions, tours, and Dr. Francis Cuss, former Chief Scientific Officer of Bristol-Myers Squibb, being interviewed by Cokie Roberts, ABC News political commentator and member of the Moffitt Cancer Center Board of Advisors. Whereas one of the largest events of its kind in Florida, Moffitt Cancer Center Business of Biotech Conference is always free of charge, open to all with an interest in science and innovation. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Hillsborough County, Florida, does hereby declare that March 2nd, 2018 was Moffitt Cancer Center Business of Biotech Day in Hillsborough County, and recognizes Moffitt Cancer Center's Business of Biotech event for its importance in promoting job creation and strengthening the overall economic well-being of the community. And of course, this is signed by all 7 of our county commissioners. And I invite you to say a few words.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Murman, to the Board of County Commissioners, as well as to the citizens of Tampa Bay. We just want to come here and say thank you very much for recognizing our efforts. Everyone knows about, or everyone should know about the benefits of Moffitt Cancer Center, especially in the clinical realm and the research realm. But what often doesn't get recognized is our opportunity and our impact on economic development, our impact on building the biotech cluster and biotech hub that we would like to see here in Tampa Bay. So every year, now for the 12th year, we have hosted Business of Biotech, an opportunity for individuals from the private industry space, from the intellectual property space, from the academic space, also from the investor-related space, to come to Moffitt and discuss the business of biotech, to discuss emerging themes that go on in biotech, especially focused on the cancer realm. This year, we had a record number of individuals sign up. 500 individuals signed up to attend our conference, which is free, and we had 400 attendees. We also had individuals that partnered with our faculty and companies that partner with our faculty, 20 different companies, to be able to give those faculty members cutting-edge access to emerging technologies in the cancer field and allow them to serve as academic consultants to drive and push our mission forward. And so once again, we just want to say thank you for those of you who were there. And as the video showed, we had Francis Cuss, one of the leading and most instrumental people in the development of one of the key cancer therapies, immunotherapy, to be present, to have a fireside chat with Cokie Roberts, former NPR, as well as ABC News correspondent, who also sits on our board of directors. It was a memorable opportunity. We wouldn't be able to do it without your support, the EDI2 initiative that we have received for numerous years, and we once again just want to say thank you very much. The 13th annual Business of Biotech will be bigger and better, and we hope all of you can attend.
Our next proclamation will be by Commissioner Les Miller.
Not mechanically inclined. Good morning. You know, with everything that's going on in the world today and affecting our young people, one as late as yesterday, it's good to have organizations within your community that try to make sure that those children that or kids that may be going on the wrong track can turn around and get on the right track. And the Prodigy Culture Arts organization does just that. I want to invite up Mr. Nestor Ortiz, the Chief Operating Officer for the University Area CDC, Mike Tripper, Prodigy Director for University Area CDC, and Ms. Davida Bowen, Community Relations Manager, University Area CDC. Good morning. How are you? Good morning. Good morning. How you doing? The Prodigy Culture Arts Program was launched in 2000 by the University Area CDC. Prodigy is a research-based prevention program for at-risk youth in grades 1 through 12. Excuse me. Through its classes in the mobile unit, Prodigy Moves, the Prodigy Culture Arts Program delivers life skills, infused arts instructions, and the GO. Currently, Prodigy is funded by Hillsborough County and the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice. Since its inception, over 30,000 youth have participated in the Prodigy program throughout the West Central Florida, with more participating each year. This is a vitally important program to our community, so therefore I'd like to present this proclamation to this program and its staff. Whereas Prodigy is a research-based prevention and diversion program for students in 1st through 12th grades that use visual and performing arts to reach over 3,000 students who live in high-risk neighborhoods each year. And whereas participants in the Prodigy Culture Arts Program benefit from the success-based youth development model that infusions cultural arts lessons with life and self-control skills, such as anger management, problem solving, and communications. And whereas by modifying young people's behavior, the Prodigy Cultural Arts Program prevents them from moving deeper in the juvenile justice system, which costs us a lot of money. And it saves that money through the state and improving communications and transforming young lives. And whereas in 6 counties throughout Central Florida, the Prodigy Cultural Arts Showcase features the creative talents of participants during the month of March. And whereas the Prodigy Cultural Arts Month recognizes the artistic talents of at-risk youth in the program and supports the positive transformation in their lives and they pursue art and culture. And whereas the showcase allows attendees to watch children express themselves through the various art forms such as dance, music, vocal performances, painting, photography, drums, keyboard, art, sculpture, drawing, spoken word, and creative writing. And whereas the Prodigy Arts Program transformed the lives of at-risk youth in Hillsborough County through the use of visual and performing arts. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners, Hillsborough County, Florida, does hereby declare March 2018 as Prodigy Culture Arts Month, and Hillsborough County urges all citizens to recognize the value of the Prodigy Culture Arts Program and support its mission to serve at-risk youth throughout Central Florida. Presented this 21st day of March 2018. Who's going to accept it?
Good morning, and thank you, Commissioner Miller, and good morning to all commissioners. And I believe we have a short video just to share the power of Prodigy, what's happening in Hillsborough County, if we can roll that video.
I got the people and they're gonna be up.
So as you heard, that Prodigy is a West Central Florida program, but our home base, our home is Hillsborough County, and it was started here 18 years ago. And thank you, Commissioner Chris, for launching us on that path years ago. But we've expanded, as you saw, with the help of Hillsborough County support to not only serve at-risk youth, as was said, but also serving now adults and seniors. And look how great they were doing with the drumming. But it's important that we continue to fund programs like Prodigy, as you mentioned, and all the things that are going on. And really, we're a safe place for young people, where young people can learn skills, but also have mentoring and really develop their sense of self, really develop a path and a passion for the cultural arts, but also to just be successful in their own lives. So we've done that for 18 years. We continue to really make a difference in this community. We're excited about the partnership with Hillsborough County, and we can just really ask that Hillsborough County continues to support Prodigy to make sure that we do not leave out any young people in our county, to make sure that even without or with state funding, that Hillsborough County continues to support Prodigy for all its residents, whether youth or adult. And so thank you very much. On behalf of Prodigy, we have some of our great staff and instructors here today from the University Area CDC and some of our other program sites. And so on behalf of the University Area CDC and the Prodigy Cultural Arts Program, we really appreciate this proclamation.
Yes, Commissioner Chris, you're recognized. You want to say a few words before we take a
I
picture?
do, just a few. First, I'd like to thank Commissioner Miller and you, Madam Chair, for your decades of support of Prodigy. Long before ever coming to the County Commission, when you were both in the state legislature, you were champions for the children and for the arts and for the Prodigy program, and I think that the world needs to know that. In addition, there was something that wasn't said that should be said, but Prodigy was created initially as a test to show that prevention intervention programs could be designed to change behavior, improve learning skills, and reprogram youth that are headed in the wrong direction. And the McGill University in Canada, which is the Harvard of social work, partnered with the University of South Florida and designed the curriculum that is part of the agenda of the teaching and training of Prodigy to ensure positive outcomes and change. And unlike most all other intervention and prevention programs, Prodigy measured the youth coming into the program where they were in their life and in their studies and in their school and in their culture, and where they grew to become by the end of the program, and continued to monitor them for a year or so after to see where they went. And that is so critical to know as funders if our investments were well utilized. As a result, in 2007, at the international event in Brussels, Prodigy was recognized as the #1 arts-based intervention and prevention program worldwide. And I think that that's important to know. Thank you to the team, Prodigy, and to all the good work that you do, and to the thousands of children that have benefited. Thank you.
They know how to pose for pictures.
Congratulations to the team at Prodigy. And we are now ready to move to our agenda and approve the changes to the agenda. So, Mr. Merrill, would you like to review those changes?
Yes, Commissioners, we have no items pulled from the agenda, no items added other than an off-the-agenda item for a verbal update on legislative issues by Brandon Wagner. We have a couple of revisions. D1, which is a public hearing to adopt an ordinance establishing the Cultural Assets Commission. That's just simply to acknowledge that it's related to item A11. A11 is the agreement with the Arts Council to provide the annual funding for the Arts Council. The Arts Council will be the one overseeing and administering the Cultural Assets Program, so those two are related. B6, which is the contract with the Sports Authority for LED sports field lighting for the soccer complex. The change there is simply to acknowledge that the funding for the LED lighting is coming from the 3-cent tourist development tax reserves. We have a handful of time certains beginning at 10 a.m. We have two public hearings. First is D1, as I mentioned, to adopt an ordinance establishing the Cultural Assets Commission. D2 is the first of two required public hearings to amend and restate an existing development agreement between NNP-IV Lake Hutto and Hillsborough County. This is regarding the widening of Bell Shoals Road. At 10:15, we have two items. F3, which is Commissioner Murman's item, which is in connection with the recent resignation letter from the County Attorney, Chip Fletcher, requesting the board to start a process to search for a new county attorney. And also F5, which is Commissioner White's item, to consider an appointment to address the vacancy in the county attorney's office. At 10:45 is item F1, which is Commissioner Kemp's item concerning the response to the shooting in Parkland, Florida. At 11 a.m., F4 is a Commissioner Murman's item, which is considering a review of all appointments to the CareerSource Tampa Bay Board of Directors, requesting all current CareerSource board appointees to reapply for their positions, and to request that staff come back with a plan going forward for CareerSource Tampa Bay. At 11:15, we have two items. B3, which is the interlocal agreement between the Sports Authority and the county relating to the operation of the tournament sports complex. And B6, which is the item I mentioned earlier having to do with the contract for the LED sports field lighting for the soccer complex. And at 11:30, E1, which is a special appearance by Dave Frezza, Senior Vice President of Network Operations for Frontier Communications, as a follow-up regarding the January 31st, 2018 911 outage and county resources utilized in the response. Those are the changes to the agenda.
Thank you very much. May we have a motion by Commissioner Chris, second by Commissioner White, to approve the changes to the agenda. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. And we'll now go to the public comment portion of the meeting. The board welcomes comments from citizens about any issue or concern. Your opinions are valued in terms of providing input to the board members. However, it is requested at the same time when you address the board that comments are not directed personally against a commissioner or staff member, but rather directed at the issues. This provides a mutual respect between the board members and the public. The board has set aside a 45-minute period in the morning immediately following changes to the agenda for public comments. At the discretion of the chair, the board may again hear public comments at the end of the meeting. People wishing to speak before the board during the public comments portion of the meeting should complete the electronic request for public comment form located in the lobby just outside the boardroom. Citizens speaking on scheduled agenda items will be heard before citizens speaking on non-scheduled agenda items. And when addressing the board, please state your name, speak clearly into the microphone, and 3 minutes will be allowed for each speaker. The first speaker for on the agenda items is not a name. It just says, do not call, do not call. I know what that's about. You can scratch it. Okay. Okay. Then Gary Dolgen. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Gary Dolgen. I'm a local board-certified marital and family law attorney, but I'm here as a dad today to speak about Commissioner Miller's ban on assault weapons proposal from 2 weeks ago. I'm here because this hit too close to home. My daughter went to prom at school down there and knew 3 of the girls that were killed. On the day of the shooting, my daughter called me frantically, telling me that Samantha's texting me, she and her brother are hiding, there's a shooter at the school. So this is personal. We've had so many school shootings that everyone is being touched across the country with this. And so I asked the commission to do your part by passing Commissioner Miller's ban. I would remind everyone that Justice Scalia's opinion in D.C. versus Heller stated that there can be regulation of firearms and dangerous weapons, regulation on how weapons are sold. And yesterday in Maryland there was another shooting. The only good news is that the shooter had a handgun, and so he didn't have a AR-15 with high magazine capacity, didn't have enough time to spray bullets and kill a lot of kids before the officer was able to shoot him. My daughter listened to the mother of one of the victims cry about what that assault weapon did to her body. She was shot in the head, she was shot in the chest, and she was shot in the foot that she used to score soccer goals with. As an alternative, I'm asking my understanding is that the Constitutional Revision Commission is considering a constitutional amendment. Please use your influence as commissioners to put that on the ballot so the people can decide. Ask the county attorney for a legal opinion regarding the state superiority law. And also, I'm pleased what the commission did 2 weeks ago with regard to looking at extending the waiting period. I'm also pleased that Governor Scott, staunchly supported by the NRA, signed some legislation. Senator Rubio has said he's reconsidering his position on magazine capacity. And so I ask all of you, even those who are strong, been supported by the NRA, to reconsider your position on these issues, because we can have a solution which protects everyone's Second Amendment rights and at the same time protects our children. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. Our next, that was our only speaker on the agenda items, or off the agenda items. Our first speaker will be Joanne O'Brien, and then Steve Kaufman after Joanne, and then David McAllister. Good morning, Joanne.
Good morning. I'm here to talk about bullying in the schools. I have a neighborhood child that goes to school. He gets bullied on the school bus. He gets bullied over there at Burnett Middle School. And the answer from one of the teachers or what have you, if we didn't see it, it basically didn't happen. Now, I think as a county, maybe we should have people going into the school and talk about this issue. because this kid is being unmercifully crucified because he is disabled and he is in a special ed class at Burnett. The mother, she put here, she's to the point, she doesn't feel that he's safe at school, but if she keeps him out, she'll be arrested for not sending him to school. So something seriously has to be done. When a kid is bullied, sometimes they grow up. Sometimes they'll go back to the school and they go in there and shoot up the school. We have to give all this thought of how, the backgrounds of these, children come from. So it's a very sad situation in the world that we live in today, that we have to stand by and watch this. And the kid was also sprayed in the face on the school bus with perfume. Now, where was the bus driver? When I was a bus driver in New York, if there were incidents, we wrote an incident report. And I don't know if you're allowed to do that anymore in this day and age, but I would march that offender into the guidance counselor's office and speak to them and let them think about what they did. So changes need to be made in our school system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Stephen Kaufman. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good to see you again. I'm Pastor Steve Kaufman. I'm the pastor of Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in South Tampa. And our congregation is a member of HOPE, the Hillsborough Organization for Progress and Equality. HOPE is, of course, a multi-issue interfaith community organization that unites congregations throughout Hillsborough County to achieve long-term solutions to serious community problems impacting all our families. On behalf of the 24-member congregations of HOPE, I'm here to follow up on our December 15th letter of invitation to each one of you, inviting you to HOPE's public meeting, we call it the Nehemiah Action, on Monday, April 16th, 2018, at 7 p.m. We'll be at Bible-Based Fellowship Church in Carrollwood. We anticipate you making time on your busy agendas to be a part of this very important community effort. We hope that 1,600 community residents will look to you for your leadership and support on April 16th. This will be the largest interfaith public meeting in our county, focusing on resolving serious problems. And I think you've heard them before, but I'm going to list them. Our need for decent housing, affordable housing for working families and the elderly, increasing elder care services so that our seniors can age at home with dignity, and reducing the arrests of our children. We again invite you to prioritize joining us, our 1,600 strong Hillsborough County residents, on Monday, April 16th at 7 o'clock at Bible-Based Fellowship Church in Carrollwood. And we pray that each one of you who care as we do for the quality of life for all our families in the county will join us. Those of you who have been invited to join us in a short meeting prior to that, we would look forward to your call. If we can set up a meeting with some of you, we'd love to do that. So thank you very much. Good to be here with you.
Thank you very much. David McAllister, then Beth Wieneman, and Char Lurch. David McAllister? I know, I saw him. David McAllister, okay. We'll go to the next speaker, Beth Wieneman. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Beth Wieneman, and I live in Citrus Park. I'm a member of HOPE, the Hillsborough Organization for Progress and Equality. Everyone deserves a place to call home. Thousands of Hillsborough County citizens live in overcrowded homes or pay too much for a home, all because there is not enough housing available that they can afford. I want to tell you about two such families. The first is a mom with 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. She's in her mid-30s, divorced, and her ex-husband doesn't provide very much support. She works full-time in social work, and she has a second part-time job. and she attends college at night to improve her chances for a better paying job. Their last apartment was in poor condition, and the landlord just didn't care. She hated to move and possibly make the kids change schools once again. She looked for a new apartment, but nothing was available at a reasonable rent for her income. She's now spending over half of her wages for rent for a 2-bedroom apartment for a family of 4. So as you can imagine, she can't afford everything else that they need, much less what they would want. This hardworking mom and her 3 children deserve a home that's affordable. The second family has 3 generations living under the same roof. The mom was physically abused by her husband, so she had to get herself and her young son out of that house. She has a full-time job, but she couldn't find a rental home or apartment she could afford. So she and her son moved in with her parents. The grandparents are in their mid-60s and were ready to retire, maybe even downsize to a smaller home. But they can't now. They need to keep working so they can provide a home and other necessities for their daughter and grandson. They love them and, of course, are happy to help them, but they shouldn't have to postpone their retirement. And the mom, like most adult children, wants to be independent. And this family knows that there is no available housing for lower income workers because the grandparents are realtors. Yes, they help people buy and sell big, beautiful, expensive homes, but they also know the market for affordable homes and apartments. They know firsthand there is no inventory for people like their daughter because they have looked and looked and looked. These are real people, real working families. They aren't looking for a handout. They are looking for a home they can afford. An affordable housing trust fund with dedicated local public funding of $10 million annually would provide funding for about 700 more apartments or homes a year for working families just like these. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And before I recognize Commissioner Crisp, sorry, I've got allergies, I'd like our county administrator to make a statement or on what our plans are.
Yes. So we'll be presenting to the board April 18th an update on our affordable housing activities over the past few years. Just by way of comparison or acknowledging the speaker's comments, for fiscal year 18 alone, we'll be spending $13.5 million on affordable housing and producing 643 units. So in fact, we are doing and we are making a difference. We are doing what we're supposed to do in providing affordable housing. But Cheryl Howell, our Director of Affordable Housing, will present you a full report on April 18th.
Commissioner Chris, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This has been an issue that's been important to me for over 30 years, working in the university area and having led an affordable housing development initiative there. I fully understand, and I've been working with your leadership to establish a trust fund. Mr. Merrill, I think it's great that we've put $13 million towards affordable housing, but I think you're missing what the folks here are really asking for, and what they want is something like the Sardowski Trust Fund in Tallahassee, where we would have control over it here locally and could prevent outsiders from sweeping and stealing those dollars. What they're looking for is money to enhance what we are already committing towards affordable housing. So, you know, a trust fund could be established, and honestly, it could be funded with any increased new revenues generated from multifamily housing. So any multifamily housing that is out there, let's say over 100 units, we could do a modified TIF where any new revenue generated from its increased value each year, these are dollars that have not been committed, could be a percentage of those could be put into the trust fund up to a cap of $10 million. And that would be a way of capturing the money, providing the enhancement, and not taking money from any other aspects of our budget. And it does not mean new taxes at all. It's working within the structure of the existing tax structure. It's just taking additional revenues that are generated from property values that slowly go up each year, hopefully, with the economy. So I just want to assure all of you, because there's a lot of new faces out there, this is not a new issue for me, and I will continue to fight for you.
Thank you. Our next speaker for off the agenda is Char Leach, or Lurch. Sorry.
Yes, Charlotte. Thank you so much, Commissioner Christ, for your comments. You actually took half of what I was going to say this morning. And I want to say I do appreciate the $13 million, but it isn't enough because everyone deserves a decent place to call home. Hillsborough County cannot rely solely on the federal funding and the state money for housing. We can't, because we know that it's insufficient and we know it's not reliable. HUD funding is being cut and the Florida Sadowski Fund is constantly raided by the millions. We ask for your leadership, yours. This is the year to do this. We've been coming to you for 6 years when we need a local solution, one that we can depend on in Hillsborough County, because we know that investing in housing fuels the economy. We know this. We know that it creates new jobs because construction of new consumer spending after housing is occupied. 100 new affordable units, as Commissioner Christ alluded to, creates 150 jobs from direct and indirect effects of the construction and from induced effects of consumer spending. Affordable housing attracts businesses. 62% of companies considering affordable housing options, they consider it when they're selecting a new location. And we want new business to come to Tampa. Investing in housing leverages additional public and private funding. Every $1 invested leverages as much as 5 times as additional public and private investments. Pinellas' trust fund with $19 million leveraged another $208 million in investments, and it created 2,000 units. For-profit and nonprofit developers want to build affordable housing, and they want to. This $10 million would help close the financial gap and make 2 to 3 more bond deals a year. Our county misses out on bond deals and opportunities to meet the needs of our community. Affordable housing enhances the quality of life by making it a more inviting atmosphere for investments and for the creation of new jobs. Our county has tremendous wealth. We do. And we have so much to be grateful for. But we have people with tremendous needs. We ask you, our county commissioners, to make this the year that we act. This the year. We ask you to begin to address our housing crisis for the people who live here and for those who are still to come. Investing in affordable housing trust fund or a dedicated source will make Hillsborough a better place to live, work, and play. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And did David McAllister come back in the room? There he is. We called on you. I knew you were here.
Well, I'm sorry, Commissioners. Good morning. I was out giving an interview for Channel 13. And I'm David McAllister. Don't have to give my address anymore. But it's good to see you all here today. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. As you know, I come here to advocate for an appreciation for local history and veterans, especially of the period of the war between the states. The United Daughters of the Confederacy and the Sons of Confederate Veterans have been participating in a number of public events here lately. I had mentioned that upcoming last time had been the Zephyr Hills Founders Day Parade, and we participated in that, the Augusta Jane Evans Wilson chapter, and the Judah P. Benjamin camp. And also in the Rough Riders Parade that they sponsor for St. Patrick's Day down at Ybor City. At neither of those, either in the smaller town of Zephyr Hills or in Ybor City, has there been any disrespect or any negative reaction to the participation of people that were dressed in period costume and carrying Confederate flags. It was all part of the community. One of the questions that Channel 13 had for me was, you know, how do I feel about having the monument been removed? Well, I still feel bad. It's an open wound. It's an open sore. There's no healing. There's no reconciliation. You know, just the fact that it got moved to a street in Brandon is not going to cure things. Not here, not in Bradenton, where the monument was actually broken, and not in other places that are trying to use Hillsborough County as a reason for replacing or removing their monuments, such as Jacksonville. Jacksonville is very clear that the people wanting to take down their monument are the same folks that wanted to take down the Hillsborough monument, and that's not the end of their agenda. They have an anti-American agenda because they want to take down Jackson, they want to take down McKinley and Roosevelt. Thank you, Rough Riders. Your icon is being attacked right now. And they want to take down Jefferson, and they want to take down Washington, and even Lincoln. So it's agenda of anti-Americanism, and the thin end of the wedge was right here in Hillsborough County with the people that wanted to take down the Confederate monuments. That's not the end of it. You know, it didn't end with the removal of the Confederate flag from the county seal, which the agreement was to keep flags in the atrium here in the county center, and that agreement was abrogated by the county commission.
Mr. McAllister,
Sorry.
I just want to warn you, please don't direct your comments to a commissioner.
I am not.
Thank
I'm
you.
directing it to the commission in general. But I see that my yellow light is on. I don't know if the red light's hit yet, but I'll be back. This is not something that's going to go away because it has to do with American values. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Miller, you're
Madam Chair,
recognized.
first and foremost, I object to him coming forth saying that those who wanted to take down the monument were anti-American system. I served in the United States Air Force. Mr. McAllister, you're done. You're done, Mr. McAllister.
Well, you
I
didn't
served in
hear
the
what I
United States-
said about
I served in the
Antifa and
United
Black
States Air
Lives
Force
Matter
4
last
years
time, did you?
protecting this
Mr.
country. So don't come
McAllister,
here
you
talking
are not
about
allowed to
anti-American
respond.
taking down monuments. Yeah, I led the charge, and I'm more American than probably you are, because I served in the United States Air Force protecting my country.
Please.
Did you? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are at the end of public comment, and I need a motion to approve consent. Motion by Commissioner Chris, seconded by Commissioner Kemp. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
And Mr. Merrill, we are now on the regular agenda.
Yes. All right. Yes, we do have 2 public hearings beginning at 10 a.m., beginning with item D1.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Charlotte Diggs with the County Attorney's Office. At your direction, we have for your consideration today an ordinance to establish the Cultural Assets Commission. The commission will function as an advisory body to this board and will be responsible for administering the Cultural Assets Program, which will be staffed by the Arts Council of Hillsborough County. Moments ago on the consent agenda, this board approved item A11, which is the funding agreement enabling the Arts Council to provide staffing services in support of the commission and the program. It is proposed that the commission will be comprised of a minimum of 11 members chosen by this Board of County Commissioners. The primary duties of the commission are specifically enumerated in the proposed ordinance, which is aligned with the general mission to stimulate greater governmental and public awareness and appreciation of cultural assets to the public. This hearing has been duly noticed and advertised pursuant to law. I'm available for any questions you may have regarding the ordinance. Also present today is Assistant County Administrator Ron Barton, Lindsay Kimball, the Director of Economic Development, and Martine Collier, the Executive Director of the Arts Council.
Public hearing.
Now?
After the public hearing.
Okay. We're waiting for Martine?
They need to ask for a public hearing.
Well, I know, but I
there's
thought
no
you
formal
said that we were
presentation.
going to have more, I thought you I thought Martine was going to come up and make some
No, we're
comments.
just available for
Oh,
questions.
okay. Then we'll just move
Sir,
to
could
the
you
public
identify
hearing.
yourself for the record? I'm sorry. Ron Barton, Assistant County Administrator.
Okay, we'll just move to the public hearing. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item D1? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to item D1? Okay, we will close the public hearing. Commissioner Hagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll keep my remarks brief. I first introduced the creation of a cultural assets program back in 2015 with the goal to not only improve our quality of life by enhancing our community's cultural assets, but to catalyze economic development through greater consumer spending and increased tourism. The board has had a number of discussions over the years regarding this program, and several excellent suggestions from board members on how to improve the structure were incorporated into the recommendations. The board voted unanimously during our last meeting, or during our last discussion, to schedule this public hearing. I just want to point out a couple of things real quick. This is an event-oriented program, specifically not to be used toward facilities and not intended to be utilized by the big boys, if you will. We already have 5 different funding sources that we use to support our cultural facilities. The way that this is structured is that it does provide significant flexibility should tweaks or changes need to be made during program implementation. And again, all recommendations will come before the BOCC for final approval. We will have full discretion and authority regarding funding. I again want to thank the board members for their feedback and suggestions, and also want to give a special thank you to Ron Barton and Lindsay Kimball. They worked really hard over the last couple of years to get us where we are today. And with that, I'm happy to move approval, approving the ordinance establishing the Cultural Assets Commission.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hagan, second by Commissioner White. Now, I do have a question I do want to ask you. Is this ordinance limited to just outdoor events, or does it include indoor? All right, I mean, Commissioner Hagan, or it doesn't matter who answers it.
I'm happy to. The ordinance does not speak to that. The actual policy document, which you adopted earlier, is where we profile how we see the program being implemented. The question about whether it relates to facilities or not, there's language in the policy document that basically say our primary objective is to address placemaking initiatives out in our community. And so it says it relates to facilities, but it also encourages activities out in our neighborhoods and in our parks and in our open spaces. The purpose was to differentiate because we already have significant funding to the buildings. And so whether it's the Seminole gaming money or the tourist development tax or the capital program for cultural facilities, all of those are already going to buildings. So we wanted to differentiate that this was about programming. Hopefully that answers your question.
Okay.
I just want to say it most certainly would include indoor events such as film festivals. That was one of the main reasons why I initiated this program. And if you took a strict interpretation of language, you might think that it would prevent funding toward Gasparilla International Film Festival or the Gay and Lesbian Film Festival or something like that. It does not. In fact, in the document, it specifically says examples of eligible events. It says film festivals, but if you look at some of the language, you could get the impression that it would prevent indoor events such as film festivals, but it does not. So
Okay, I think that's what, and I just want to make sure that that's clear, because there are arts organizations out there. They have reached out to me just to, and so I wanted to ask you, Commissioner Hagan, like the Tampa Theater, the Tampa Museum of Art, they clearly do a lot of arts programming, but they aren't able to do them outside. I mean, at an event, they'd have to do them inside. And I guess, I just wanted to make sure the ordinance had a broad enough reach to give opportunity to even those individuals out there. I know out in South and East County, there's a huge event at Winthrop. They do a huge art festival outside. And I guess I looked on page 3, section C, and I wondered if we make, this would not be a major change, but just to add the word arts and cultural assets, to just clarify that it does include all that. Do you object to that, and would that hold up? I mean, if it's going to hold up the approval of the ordinance today, I'll withdraw it, but I would like to pass the gavel and ask if we could just add those 2 words so that arts organizations feel like they are included in the ordinance.
And for the sake of discussion, I'll second that.
Well, I haven't passed the gavel yet, so I need to hear from Commissioner Hagan and the sponsor and make sure they're okay with it.
It's all right.
Mr. Barton appears to be fine with that, and I believe that there are no noticed issues which would preclude us from adding that language at this point in the
So
hearing.
we could do it. Are you okay, Commissioner
Yeah, I just
Hagan?
want to stress that, to me, cultural assets includes arts. I mean, from the beginning, I defined it as being broader than art, so I don't have a problem with that. I just want to stress, again, that this is event-oriented, and this is not intended for, I'll just use the term big boys, because they have a number of other funding options, and this is to help help events that are either at their infancy or are doing well but want to take it to the next level. And so it's not designed for those that are getting significant funding from other sources. So I just want to stress that. That being said, I have no problem with including that language.
Okay, I want to make sure we broaden this opportunity and make it available. And I hear what you're saying. Yes, they get enough money from us, the big boys do. And so, but if it's okay, I'd like to pass the gavel and then make that amendment to add arts and in section C on page 3 before the word cultural assets.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second and a motion open for discussion.
Okay, your button is lit.
My button's lit because I wanted to say something, but I'm chairing right now, so I have to wait till everyone has a chance. So everyone has a chance, and no one said anything, so I'll say something. As the appointee to the Arts Council and an individual who is quite engaged in the arts personally and professionally myself, the one component in Hillsborough that frankly has been lacking is more arts and cultural engagement out in the community. We put a lot of efforts into sports, and we need to increase our efforts in the arts. And, you know, when you look at the dollars that are spent on arts, it is significant. In most cases, more than sports. And I think there's a huge market segment out there that we haven't capitalized on that we will begin to capitalize on with this move. And I think it's a brilliant move. I thank Commissioner Hagan for his leadership here. I like the way that it has morphed into a collaborative and a partnership in working with the Arts Council, because the Arts Council can be so much more than it has been. And working with our team here at the county, we have been reforming and evolving it. Martine, I'd like to hear from you. I see you sitting in the audience. You're the director for the Arts Council. You will be staffing this initiative. And I just, for the sake of confusion out there, I want people to understand, Arts Council will continue doing what it does and does well. What this will do is work in tandem with the Arts Council in helping to cultivate venues that are creative, artistic, and in nature that could help make this even more of a destination location. Correct? Can you come up and talk to us a little bit about this?
Good morning, Martine.
Good morning. First of all, the Arts Council is very excited about this opportunity. And I would concur with Commissioner Chris that this will help us get out broader and deeper in the community. It's a very specialized kind of funding source and different. The Arts Council will still continue to do our cultural development grants, which we've always done. We also have a new program starting this year for very, very tiny emerging organizations. But this Cultural Assets Commission and this program will really reach things that I think can have a huge economic impact through tourism and get more broadly throughout the county. I see a lot of this happening outside of Tampa, most likely. But I think it's a great opportunity and an opportunity to really build the level of cultural philanthropy in this community, which I see is not as strong as some other places that I've been. So I think it's a very visionary move. I appreciate Commissioner Hagan bringing it to all of you. I appreciate the Arts Council being given the opportunity to administer it. I think some really good things are going to come from it. And everybody just stay tuned.
Thank you, Martine. Question of Mr. Barton.
I do have final comments.
Ron? Isn't it true that programs like this help to grow and foster and strengthen an arts-based workforce?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it
And-
is economic-based.
And isn't an arts-based workforce an area where we do need some jump-starting and enhancement in this market?
Yes, sir.
And aren't there potential employers that we could attract here, whether it be software designers or, to Mr. Hagan's delight, movie makers that need to draw on that kind of workforce?
That's correct. The Film Commission, the Arts Council, this program, they're all going to work in tandem.
Very good. Charlotte?
Yes, Commissioner.
You're not seen at this podium very often, but I want my colleagues to know how lucky we are to have such a wonderful and creative and smart attorney working in our organization.
Thank you very
I've
much.
had the pleasure of working with you now in the Arts Council for several years, and you are remarkable. And you are very thoughtful, you are very diligent, but most of all, you are detailed. And that is very much appreciated.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for your hard work on
I
this.
appreciate that. Thank you so
Closing
much.
comments.
We have some more comments?
Just closing comments. I do want to thank Commissioner Hagan since, and Commissioner Kemp is, she's in the queue also, but I do want to thank Commissioner Hagan because when I became a commissioner, I had, as a legislator, I traveled around the state. You got to see such huge art festivals, communities like Broward and Fort Lauderdale and Miami do just huge events that really put them on the map. And I think this is going to go a long way to do that. So I do applaud you for bringing this forward. And Commissioner Kemp is in the queue.
Commissioner Kemp, you're cued.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, express my full support for this. I think it's very good, too, that it now comes under the Arts Council. I think that's the right place for it to be. But I certainly think that we could benefit greatly. I know that all studies show that the dollars invested in the arts go very, very far in what they produce, and I think it's I very much appreciate the fact that it's directed towards programs. I've said before that so I look at how we look at buildings and capital, and are invested in capital so much to the exclusion sometimes of operations and what we do. So I am always one that can appreciate a focus on operations. I think it would just be a very good move for us.
Okay.
Close the amendment.
Did you want to close?
No, I already did.
Okay, so we have no one else. Commissioner Hagan, you're in the queue.
No, fine. I just want to thank all the board members for their positive comments and support, and for the recommendations that you guys made to improve the overall program and structure.
Okay, anybody else? No one else in the queue? Then the board will be open and we will vote.
For the amendment.
For the amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, Madam Chair, you have the
Sure.
gavel
We are
back.
back on the ordinance as amended. Is there any further discussion? We have a motion by Commissioner Hagan, seconded by Commissioner White on item D1. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
And your second public hearing, D2.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Lyons, Public Works Department. Commissioners, we're asking you to conduct the first of 2 required public hearings to amend and restate an existing development agreement between NNP.
We will, there's no we do have Commissioner White in the queue, but he wants to be recognized after the public hearing. We'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of item D2? Anyone here to speak in opposition to item D2? Okay, Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you, and I'd like to call Mr. Lyons back to the podium. This is going to be a major project out in my district, so you've been so kind as to offer me several one-on-one briefings. In one of the briefings, I had the opportunity to look at some financials, and I understand those financials as an indicator that the developer is not getting off the hook, so to speak, in any way, shape, or form, and that there's no added burden to the taxpayers as we move forward.
Yes, that
with
is
this
correct.
change. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Excellent. Also, when Bell Shoals is ultimately widened, there will be some mature natives in its path, some oak, some pine, some mature saw palmetto as well. Certainly, I understand that this is progress and that that'll happen, but what I've asked for is there will be, when it comes to the landscaping, there will be one portion that the Bloomingdale Special Taxing District is in charge of, so to speak, with respect to project design. And then there's a portion that we, the county, will be responsible for on project design. And on our portion, I've asked that we mitigate for the loss of those natives by planting natives in the medians, the right-of-ways, wherever we can, things like saw palmetto, pine, maybe oak if it doesn't cause any issues with respect to the infrastructure. Is that still in the plan?
Yes, sir. Those changes have been incorporated into the landscaping plans for the project.
Fantastic. That's all I have.
Okay, and then the next public hearing will be
April 12th. I'm
April-
sorry, April 10th.
April 10th.
At the
Great.
land use meeting. Yes.
Thank you very much, John. Okay, next item, Mr. Merrill.
Yes, that brings you to your 10:15 time certain, which is 2 items, F3, which is Commissioner Murman's item on the process for selecting a new county attorney, and F5, which is Commissioner White's item to consider an appointment to address the vacancy in the county attorney's office.
Okay, I will pass the gavel to Commissioner Chris as I introduce this item. With sadness, we have to accept this resignation from Chip Fletcher. It's, he's done such a great job for us, but he'll be missed, but we do need to look forward. This is a very important decision for this board. 3 of us that came on board went through hiring you when we were new to the board. But this is a major job. And I think Commissioner White's going to address an interim position, but I did want to more talk about the process, as we go forward. And I'm open to, Commissioner Miller, I see your light on. I just want to request board action to start the process to find a new county attorney, including the county attorney, our Chip Fletcher right now, come back to the board with a timeline and a process. I have met with Kevin Beckner, who runs, our very able agency, and I think he's willing to participate in the search. So I'll wait to hear for comments, but I would like to make a motion to request the board to start the process and ask our county attorney to come back with a timeline and a recommendation for seeking applicants to fill the county attorney position. And Commissioner Miller.
Okay, Commissioner Miller, you're up. Okay, she has a motion.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Is there a second?
I'll second for the sake of discussion.
Okay. Commissioner Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand where Commissioner Murman is going with wanting to have a search put into place to replace our capable county attorney that's leaving us for another great organization, Moffitt Cancer Center. I can't hold anything against you there. but we're going to miss you, and you've done an admirable job. You've been here 5 years now? 5 years that you've been here, and the county and the people of this county thanks you for what you've done. However, I'm one that feels that if you have well-qualified people in an organization, that they should be given the opportunity to advance and excel before a search is held to fill that higher position. Our county attorney's office have such persons within that office and should have the opportunity to advance and serve as the next county attorney. One such person has been with the county's attorney's office for over 27 years. Has proven to be a leader, manager, has foresight, flexibility, honesty, and trustworthy. That person is a board certified in city and county and local government law and was previously certified in appellate practice. I know Commissioner Murman has put a motion on the floor to start the process of searching for a new county attorney, but I feel that we have a capable person serving in that office at this point in time. So therefore, I'm going to make a substitute motion, and I move that we appoint Ms. Christine Beck as county attorney with an interim contract not to exceed 1 year and give her all the rights and privileges to perform the duties as the county attorney.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Open for discussion,
Commissioner
debate.
White's in the
Commissioner
queue.
White.
First of all, I have had the opportunity to meet Ms. Beck and get to know Ms. Beck, and I am 100% supportive of her serving as the interim county attorney. Commissioner Murman has expressed an interest in a search process. The motion on the floor calls for her being named the interim with a 1-year contract.
No, I didn't say interim. I said county attorney with the interim contract.
Okay, well, I would ask Mr. Fletcher what it means to have a title of county attorney, but having a contract that's interim.
So, Commissioners, I've been trying to think, because we've had the two items on the agenda, a way to kind of harmonize what we're looking at. And I think there's kind of three important things to consider. One is, in looking back at the track record here in searches and in other places, they generally take at least a year. That just seems to be the norm. It seems long, but when you back out all the time frames, that seems to be about how long they take. When I was hired, the interim was in place for 18 months, and prior to that was when Ms. Lee was hired was 14 months. So we will have that period of time. Our office runs very lean right now, and it will require somebody actively managing it to keep the level of service where you all are expecting it during that period of time. So the important thing is that whoever you all appoint to fill that time period, and the motion is Christine, which I think would be fantastic, that person have the full authority to fully manage the office. In the last 6 months, we've had to hire 2 attorneys and 2 secretaries, or 1 secretary, and make different personnel decisions like that. And I think it's important that the incumbent have the authority to make those decisions. I think it helps with the title county attorney, but I don't think it's required. I think you could make it interim, but the purpose of having an interim contract would make it clear that that's for the term. Well, if the board wants to do a search, it's during the period that search occurs. So that's kind of my thought process. But obviously it's the board's decision, and you all can do whatever you all would like there. I don't think this title is critical, but I do think it helps with both the actual and apparent authority during that period of time.
Okay. Well, at this point, I'm not prepared to make a motion. I'd love to hear more board discussion about whether or not there's an interest in carrying out a search process.
Well, we have a substitute motion on the floor.
Well, I guess for clarification, I'm not prepared to make a motion to amend to discuss a search process because I'd like to hear what some of the other commissioners think.
Commissioner Kemp?
I would like to say I support the substitute motion. I would like to see Christine Beck serve as our county attorney on an interim contract. Very supportive of that. I actually would like to see it for 18 months, which is, as I understand, and what Mr. Fletcher just said, that it would take at least 18 months. I would rather forego, I will be in the camp of foregoing a search at this time to consider that at a later point. But at this point, I'd very much like to look at, be supportive of Ms. Beck, and I'd like to make a amendment for 18 months rather than 12.
Okay, is there a second to that amendment to the amendment? Seeing no second, it fails. Okay, Commissioner Hagan?
Thank you. First of all, I fully support Commissioner Miller's motion to have Christine Beck come on board and serve as the county attorney. Chip, it's my understanding in our discussions that that's your recommendation, or at least to have Christine on an interim basis.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. But I'm a little confused to Commissioner Murman's motion, so I'd like, if you wouldn't mind, to clarify that. And then I'm also not sure if they are mutually exclusive. So can you clarify what your motion was and what your thoughts are?
Thank you. And really, they are two separate issues. I fully agree with Commissioner Miller's, for the interim, Commissioner Miller's substitute motion, sorry. But I think while we're going through that interim first-year contract, that we start the process of at least looking, or let people apply for the job. See what interest there is out there. I'm not saying that Christine would probably still rise above many of the applicants, and I have worked with her. I think she's wonderful. She's a woman. I love it. But you hit the nail on the head, and I was going to bring it up. These are really kind of two separate issues. And so I think what I'm going to do is withdraw my original motion to bring it up as a separate motion after Commissioner Miller's motion is disposed of. Substitute. So we can still do the process of looking, or at least seeking applicants for the allowing people. I've been contacted by several people that are interested in the job, and I think we need to engage a process and at least see what else is out there. I think she's very capable. That's not and I'm glad we have an internal candidate, but I do think this is a very, very important job. And we should not just, I think we should let the community apply if they want to.
Madam Chair, I think I still have the floor.
Yes.
I don't want to split hairs. As I already stated, I support Commissioner Miller's motion moving forward. However, today, I'm not prepared to start the search process. I may be supportive of getting feedback on options to start the process in the future, but I'm not ready today to just vote to start accepting applications. And here's why. Going back, I think when we hired not only Chip, but then before that, Renee Lee, I've always, although some folks in the newspapers always prefer a nationwide search, I've always been against a nationwide search, specifically when it's regarding the county attorney's office, Because number one, they got to be Florida Bar certified. Number two, there are specific laws, specifically regarding sunshine laws, that are unique in the state of Florida, in Hillsborough County. So I'm not prepared to start that process today. Now, if we want someone to come back with options, then we can debate whether we want to do locally, state, nationwide, then I'd lean toward supporting that. But I'm not prepared today to go that far to officially start the process.
Then
I hope that
that's-
makes sense. I mean,
Okay, can I respond to him? Because that was what he was asking me, because
Okay.
that was in my motion. The
Oh.
original motion was to start the process and have the county attorney come back to us with options.
Commissioner Murman, yes, the chair recognizes you in response.
I already responded.
Well, I'll put it on the record.
Commissioner Higginbotham's next.
Commissioner Higginbotham?
Thank you. And one of the more frustrating times for me in dealing with staff and people in the community was oftentimes they would want to tell you what they think you want to hear. And what I've always liked and admired about Ms. Beck is that she was a person who would come in and call balls and strikes, who was straightforward, and if she didn't agree, she would tell me why and would back it up. And for the reason that I second the motion, I'm not comfortable with starting the search today, so I'm not supportive of the motion as I heard it stated. So with that said, I want to hear what your motion is, but look forward to supporting the support from Ms. Beck.
Commissioner White's in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Commissioner Hagan on this issue. In fact, in the private sector, it's not uncommon for leadership to say or to ask, if you have someone groomed that's ready to replace you. I mean, that's the sign of a good leader. And I very wholeheartedly agree that that organizations, including this public sector organization, should provide an opportunity for a career ladder for its employees so that you can climb the ladder, and if you're duly qualified and able to take over a position such as the county attorney position, that you're able to take it over. I don't think it would be fair to Ms. Beck to leave the situation open-ended as to whether or not we want to conduct a search. I'm definitely not ready to put any mechanics of a search together today, but I think we do need to leave the boardroom today with an understanding of whether or not a search is going to occur, whether that's today, 9 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to amend, to remove the word interim from contract. And if that motion to amend passes, then the amended motion would be just to appoint Ms. Beck as the county attorney, to give her a one-year contract, and we'll see where we stand in a year.
Okay, I've been waiting patiently for a turn to speak in this process.
You got a motion on the floor.
I know we got a motion on the floor. Do we have a second to this motion? Okay, we have a second.
I'll second.
For the sake of discussion, Commissioner Murman. I guess I'm going to be the counterpoint on this discussion. From the very beginning to the first meeting that we had when I was elected 7 years ago, there was something done by this board that I bitterly disagreed with. And it was the way that we appointed our county administrator. It wasn't that I was opposed to Mike Merrill. I thought he was a great guy. I was opposed to the lack of process, the lack of community engagement, the lack of best practices in that selection. And on all of the hundreds of boards that I've served on over the last 40 years, the one thing I have always fought for was an open process of active due diligence where we constantly looked for the best talent that we could possibly engage. Yes, I think it's very important and it's best practices to build capacity, especially for succession. But I think we should never fall short in testing ourselves and looking outside of the box to see if we've done our jobs right and if we have the best of the best. You know, if we wouldn't have done that the last time around, we wouldn't have gotten Chip Fletcher. We had this very debate, 6 years ago. And we decided to open the door and look at what else was out there, and we found Chip Fletcher. I know that the two individuals internally that are interested are high-quality lawyers that are loyal to the organization, that would do a fine job and would carry out the duties with the highest level of quality and respect, and I don't doubt that. But I think we owe our constituents an opportunity to weigh in on this. I think we owe our constituents best practices, and I think we owe our constituents our movement forward with doing our due diligence to make sure that we do, in fact, have the best of best in-house. I am willing to support right now moving forward with directing county staff to work with the civil service, which is a third arm's length entity, to conduct a search similar to what we did last time, and to set a time frame that would be reasonable to do this, and to go ahead and appoint one of our two internal candidates to serve as the interim until we could get through this. We may find that we have, among the two internals, our next county attorney. We may find we don't. But unless we look, we don't know. And I think we need to start looking now, and I think we need to use Kevin Beckner and the civil service as a third objective outside resource to lead this search for us.
So,
I mean, there's so many.
Because you're out of, procedurally, you're out of options, because there's
I
a
know I
motion,
am.
a substitute,
But I think it was
and an
important to
amendment
put on record
to the substitute.
how I felt about this. And we've got a lot of play going on here, and I can see clearly I don't have the vote here. And I see people smiling on the other side of the vote because they know I don't have the vote. But I think it's very important that I remain consistent on how I think and feel regarding how we fill our key positions in public service. And I think we need to make every effort to do our due diligence in searching to make sure we have the very best and that we plug them into the positions in order to ensure that we have the strongest team possible. And I think until we do a search, we don't know.
Well, technically, you're supporting my original motion, but Commissioner Miller's in the queue.
I have a question of Mr. Fletcher. What's the difference between my interim contract and Commissioner White's contract for a year?
So, at least from my perspective, the main difference would be that the motion with an interim contract sends the message that there's going to be exploration of a search process. Taking that interim term out of there indicates that there wouldn't really be a need for a search process. I didn't view your motion and Commissioner Murman's original concept as mutually exclusive, I think, as Commissioner Hagan said. Mm-hmm. But certainly with the amendment as passed, I think that would be the case. And obviously that's the preference of the board.
Commissioner White's in the queue.
Commissioner White?
And my motion to amend, which was seconded by Commissioner Murman, would really put the issue to rest as to what we want to do with respect to a search process. But Mr. Fletcher, at the end of the 12-month period, this board could at that time certainly determine whether or not we want to renew the contract or whether or not we want to search for, weigh our options.
Yes,
absolutely. Is a good way to put it.
Right.
So I think that puts the issue to rest for today. Christine Beck would be named county attorney. She'd have a one-year contract. If the board's happy in a year, we can renew that contract. We can, I guess amend it wouldn't be the right word, but we could renew the contract. We could address the search issue. We could do whatever we want 12 months from now. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Hagan?
Thank you, Commissioner. Chip, did I hear you correctly that you interpret Commissioner White's motion to be mutually exclusive with Commissioner Murman's initial motion?
I would think so. As I understand the motion, it would be to make the permanent appointment, it's with the amendment. Now, with Commissioner Miller's original motion, I was thinking what we could do is then I could put together, or whoever could put together, some options for consideration for a search. Having lived through that process last time, it was frankly a highly political process that I'm not sure is healthy in a hire, and I'd want to try to work with Kevin Beckner or whoever you all would like to try to figure out how to make that a better process. But beyond that, I don't see an interim contract and a search as mutually exclusive. I think if the board's will is to make a permanent appointment, I think that would be Commissioner White's amended motion, and certainly that's your all's prerogative. Personally and professionally, I'm fine with either approach you all want to take. I think Christine would be fantastic as a permanent replacement, or as a or in a interim contract capacity, as we were discussing with the prior motion.
Well, what I'm struggling with is that I agree with parts of pretty much every commissioner's comments here, and I don't recall that happening too often on this board, to be honest with you. As I've stated, I'm going to ultimately going to support Commissioner Miller's motion. I very much appreciate Commissioner Chris' comments. I think you're extremely compelling. I think at the end of the day, I'm struggling to do what I think is not only fair, but preserves all of our options moving forward. And as I stated earlier, I'm not prepared, or I didn't say this earlier, but I'm not prepared to close the door on a search today. And I would feel more comfortable ultimately if we come back, if Chip or someone comes back with options and on and options on how we would conduct a search, and then options regarding the process for the search. I think those are two distinct issues, and I think I would ultimately feel more comfortable having this additional information on both of those issues prior to making a decision one way or the other. And I understand I'm kind of splitting the hairs here, but I think that's in ultimately the best interest of the county attorney's office.
Commissioner Miller, you're up next on the queue, but the problem I'm having is Commissioner Murman isn't able to queue in because she's chair.
I took myself out.
Oh, you took yourself out? All right. Then Commissioner White, you're next, but Commissioner Murman's been trying to slide in there, but she can't queue in.
Right.
So I'm going to go ahead and recognize Commissioner Murman.
Thank you. Okay, so Commissioner Hagan has said exactly what I want to. So I can amend his amendment to your substitute motion.
No.
I can make an amendment to the amendment. Yes, I
You're
can.
going 4 out. You can't go 4 out. You can't go, you're going to go 3 out.
Oh, because we're on the substitute.
That's right.
So, so Commissioner White, what he needs to do is withdraw his amendment and restate it, a new amendment to include a process to come back. Do you understand that, Commissioner White? If you agreed to that, which I seconded.
Well, we're getting muddy here.
Sounds like a friendly request to me.
If I'm not
Do you
going to
honor
make the
that friendly
amendment to the
request?
amendment, because you're right, you're 4 out, but he can withdraw his and do a new substitute.
I would support that.
Okay, I'm open to that, but I do
Chip
want to
wants to
ask a
speak.
question of Mr. Fletcher. And I don't want to split hairs either, but under my original motion to amend, that would make Christine, as strange as this sounds, the permanent county attorney for a year.
As long as it doesn't make
Right.
Christine strange.
Yeah. So I'm willing to withdraw my motion to amend and place a new motion to amend on the floor, and I'm going to take a stab at this on the fly.
Okay.
It would be
You're withdrawing
Okay,
your
Chip.
initial and
Could
you're
I-
substituting.
I'm sorry, could I make a suggestion just to simplify things a little bit? If the Commissioner White were to withdraw his amendment, we vote on Commissioner Miller's item, and then Commissioner Murman, you could make a separate motion to bring back options. I think that's significantly
Okay,
different
let's
than the
do that.
original motion.
In that case, I want my motion to amend to stay on the floor. I really would like to take a stab at removing the word interim from the reference to the contract to send a signal that we are giving Christine Beck a one-year test drive. And what I'd like to see, if there is a separate motion about a process, I'd like to see incorporated in the motion that you bring back a recommended process should the board decide to engage in that process. We may never get there, but at least it's on the table.
Yes.
I think that's just simpler than the process, than the amendments.
All
and the
these
sub- yeah.
amendments. Okay.
And I think it's materially different from the original motion, so I think it would be proper.
Okay. So
Okay.
technically, you're on Miller's substitute motion. Oh, his
the same.
amendment still stands, so we need to vote on his amendment. It was seconded by me.
Okay, can you restate your amendment?
It's just simply to strike the word interim from the reference to the contract for Ms. Beck.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? The board will be open for.
Commissioner Miller is in the queue.
We are really split hairs here, to the point that you're starting to like Victor's head.
Wait, you went too far away, brother.
I know it. Now, I said an interim contract, which to me basically said that within that year's time, we could very well put into place, if we felt that we wanted to have a search, could do that. And now that we have this amendment on the floor from Commissioner White, it makes Ms. Beck the county attorney, and then we're going to come back and put a process in place to look to do a search for an attorney. And that's what I want to hear. Where we going here?
If, in my mind, that would be if, let's say, in 12 months, the board wanted to go down that path. But the board's decision in 12 months might be, hey, we think Ms. Beck's doing a great job. We just simply want to extend her contract and just keep her going as the permanent county attorney.
My concern is this, and I may be able to agree with you on taking the interim out, but I would hate to be sitting there as the county attorney that's getting appointed today with a cloud over my head saying, now you're going to come back anyway and do a search. That to me is really, really putting her and the staff up there in a really bad position.
I agree.
I would not want to sit there as a county attorney knowing that we're going to pass a contract, going to pass an motion to make her the county attorney, which I don't think I have a problem with that. But I do have a problem with coming back after this motion saying we're going to put a process in place to look for the county attorney.
So what you're.
That to me brings bad morale. So I'm inclined to vote for your motion, Commissioner White, if we do not have a second motion to put a process in place. If we leave the interim there.
What'd you say? Repeat that.
I'm inclined to vote for his motion to say, take the interim off the contract and make it a year contract, and basically making her the county attorney. But I'm not in favor of doing that and then have another motion to put a process in place to look for a county attorney. Just does not make sense to me. It leaves a bad message to the county attorney and the county attorney's office, and it could very well mess with my morale as far as I'm concerned.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
To respond.
To Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Miller, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that's a discussion for the next motion, should that motion come. But, I would be content with putting any type of discussion on a search process on hold for a year. Subject to, to that one-year contract playing out. So
in that case, I'm going to support your motion.
Okay.
And then we'll deal with, if it comes up, then we have to deal with, if Commissioner Murman is still inclined to make her motion, which I'll probably vote against it. But I'm inclined now to support your motion to make her the county attorney, and hopefully we will not put anything in place to say, oh, we're going to also look for a county attorney, because I would not want to be sitting in her shoes saying, I'm appointed county attorney, however, you're still looking to replace me.
Okay, Commissioner Higginbotham.
I withdrew.
You withdrew. Okay, then I guess I'm up next in the queue.
Commissioner, yeah, you're next and then Hagan.
You know, this whole thing's getting very complicated. For me, I agree with Commissioner Miller that if you take out the word interim and leave in the process of a search in 12 months, it sets her up to look bad if we decide to move forward with that. And I don't think that's fair to her. And I think it puts a lot of extra stress upstairs on the 26th floor on everybody there. And I would not be favorable of that. But regardless of the maneuvering and the jockeying that's going on here, for me, I want it on the record, I support an open process that engages the public, that allows this board to go out and do a search and look for the very best fit possible, whether that be in-house or outside a house. And that anyone we have in-house that's been prepared to step into the leadership role be given an extraordinary opportunity to compete for it. But I think that competition is healthy and necessary. And I think we owe that due diligence to our constituents. And I will not support anything short of that. So I will most likely be voting no on everything here today that falls short of that. And I just want it clear to everyone here and those upstairs, it isn't that I don't have faith in our candidates. I do. I think that both of the two candidates could do the job very, very well. But I owe my constituents the due diligence of looking and making sure that there isn't someone else out there that could do it better. And I think I owe it to the two people in-house that could be selected, that we've done our due diligence, and if one of the two of them are hired, that they in fact are the best that are out there. Because there's been many situations where on agencies I've served on, we've done an open deliberative process and we've come back to the well and promoted from within. And you know, that gave greater strength to the person inside that assumed the position, because it clearly showed that they had been vetted through a public, open, deliberative process. Commissioner Hagan.
All right, my last comments. Again, I fully support Christine Beck coming on as the county attorney. But as I sit here today, I want to preserve our options. So I'm not prepared to close the door on a search. I would like to see staff come back with options and the process for a search. If Commissioner Murman ultimately makes a motion along those lines, I will support it. But as I sit here today, as I understand the motions, I'm going to be unable to support Commissioner White's substitute. I will support Commissioner Miller's original motion, and then I'll also support Commissioner Murman's motion if she ultimately makes one to authorize simply not to start a search today, but to come back with options and regarding how we would do the search and the process. So, if that makes any sense.
Okay, Commissioner Murman, do you want to speak? Because again, you can't electronically key in on the queue, so I don't know.
Right. I am not going to support the amendment also. I feel very strongly about this. I have been contacted by several people, and I do think we owe it to our community. And this is nothing against the attorneys that are in the county attorney's office right now. But we owe it to our community as public servants to explore all the options, have the best candidates in front of us if we feel it is necessary at that time. So it's my final comments.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else in the queue, no more debate, the board will be open and we will vote on the amendment to the amendment. Okay.
Motion carried 4-3. Commissioners Higginbotham, and Murman voted no.
Hold on. This is outside of my trifocal over here. I pushed the wrong button. Can we redo that? I'm sitting too far to the right of the screen.
The vote is reopened.
Can you do it?
Okay.
And vote again?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion failed 3-4. Commissioners Chris, Hagan, Higginbotham, and Murman voted no.
So you need to, we're on his substitute
Okay, now we're on the Miller motion,
seconded by
by Commissioner Higginbotham. Is there any debate? I think we've argued this one out. Okay, the board will be open and we'll vote.
There, you need to recognize me.
Motion carried 6-1. Commissioner Chris voted no.
Okay,
No, you need, I want to be
Commissioner Murman, you may have the gavel.
No, I need to pass the gavel.
Okay.
Can I have a
Give-
point of personal privilege, Madam Chair?
Mhm.
To this board, to the staff out there, and all those in the audience, and those that are looking from home, I usually don't try to do outbursts in this body. That's a decorum that I learned when I went to the Florida House of Representatives. That was a decorum there, and the decorum in the Senate should be a decorum here. I'm moving to the point that decorum should always be, and we learned this in the legislature, keep your jackets on, unless the speaker or the president tell you can take your jacket off. But I resent anyone coming forth and saying, if you don't agree with me philosophically or my beliefs, you're anti-American. I resent that wholeheartedly. I might not look like you. I might have different cultures than you have. I might
See it differently.
yeah, just see it differently. But I was born in Tampa, in Hillsborough County, lived here all my life except when I was in the United States Air Force during the Vietnam era. And to sit here and say that I'm anti-American because I do not agree with you just kind of got to me. And I kind of lost my cool, which I usually try not to do, and especially my older age. But that just got to me. So to this board, to staff, and those in the audience, and those looking at home, I apologize for my outburst. I do not apologize for what I said, but I do apologize for the outburst. I will try to control my temper as much as I possibly can. But if that person comes back up here again saying that those who do not agree with him are anti-American, I may do the same thing.
Okay, and we will make sure that there are no comments directed to any commissioner. I am going to pass the gavel for another motion.
Before we do, I wanted to comment on Commissioner Miller. It takes a lot for an individual to speak up the way that you just did. And you and I have worked together for 26 years. And during those 26 years, most of that time, we've sat right next to each other. And probably more than half that time, we've disagreed. And we've had some heated disagreements, but we've been good friends for a long time and have a lot of respect for one another. You are absolutely right. We, as Americans, forget sometimes that it's okay to see things differently. It's okay to want things differently. Lord knows my wife and I are two different political parties and supported two different presidential candidates. That's what America's about. It's okay. And, it was understandable how you reacted. You fought for this country. You put your life on the line for this country. You suffered for this country. You continue to serve for this country. Your family has been in service for this country. What you did was okay. You don't have to apologize. You're okay. It was okay.
Okay, I'm going to pass the gavel to you, Commissioner Chris, to make a motion.
All right, make the motion.
Ask the county attorney to bring back a recommended process, including all options, if the board decides to engage in a search for the county attorney. And that's my motion.
Can you repeat it again?
Ask the county attorney to bring back a recommended process, including all options, if the board decides to engage in a search for county attorney.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion?
None. Oh, Commissioner White,
Commissioner White
and then Hagan.
and Hagan.
I guess this will really speak to the concerns that I had with my convoluted motion to amend about the word interim being in there. I guess what I'm most curious to know is when would the finalists be coming before this board for a decision-making process? Because to me, that would need to fall sometime right around the end of the 12-month period that we've set this interim contract for. Would you be in agreement with that, Mr. Fletcher? Or?
Well, certainly it would be up to the board on how to proceed on timing. I have not thoroughly researched this issue, but I do know, as I indicated, that the prior two times it took 14 and 18 months. I'm not sure the search took the whole time, but from the filling the position as interim until the new person, that's the time period. Procuring a search firm, assuming we want to do it like we did it last time, going through all that process, getting everything advertised, getting the resumes back in, getting them screened, that seems to take somewhere in the neighborhood of, in a normal process, if we started today, about 6 months or so. But beyond that, I haven't really looked into the mechanics of it to be able to really inform you any more than that. I could certainly bring that back in the report that's been requested. If the board wanted to set a certain timing that was longer than that, certainly you all would have the option to do that, I would think. I would question whether you'd want to do it any faster than what I just described, though.
What if the board hypothetically, I want to stress that, chooses a candidate that's not Ms. Beck in 9 months? What does that mean for the remaining 3 months of her interim contract?
Well, a couple things. One, you've indicated you want a contract, so we'll need to bring back a contract. We would need a contract term to address that eventuality and map out how that would work. I think in the discussion about an interim contract, I think in my mind that's one of the terms that gets included. There would also be a right of Ms. Beck to go back to her prior position. Mr. Merrill, when he was appointed county administrator, his initial contract had language like that. So those are the kinds of things that in my mind would be in an interim contract as opposed to a permanent contract. Sitting here today, exactly how that would work, I couldn't tell you, but that would be something we need to work through.
Okay. I'm just going to state this for the record. I don't think it needs to be in the form of a motion because you're going to be bringing a report back. But I would really, if it's possible, like to see this board making a decision within that 12-month period, even if that's 12 months minus a day, you know.
Well, and I apologize for leaving that out, but a recommended process and timeline. Timeline, that was in my original motion, and I apologize, I left it out when I wrote this new one out. So it does mean timeline also. Commissioner Hagan's in there.
Commissioner Hagan.
Thank you. Again, I'm not certain what options or processes will come forward, and I'm uncertain on the timing of a search or even if we will authorize a search. But I do feel that we should consider all of our options prior to making any permanent decision. So that's why I'm going to support Commissioner Murman's motion.
Okay. Anyone else in the queue? Seeing no more discussion, no more debate, I too will support this. Clerk will open the board.
Motion carried 6-1. Commissioner Miller voted no.
Okay, Commissioner Murman, I'm going to pass you back the gavel. There's
Thank
an
you.
issue with my 6-year-old, a medical issue at her school, and I'm going to need to go talk to the school. So
Okay.
you need to excuse me, please.
Thank you. Best wishes. Hope she's okay. Okay.
All right.
Mr. Merrill.
That brings you to your 10:45 time certain, which is Commissioner Kemp's item.
Thank you. As you all know, at our last meeting, I had put an item on the agenda prior to the meeting that was deferred to today about steps that the county should take to protect the public in light of the shooting in Parkland, Florida. I was extremely sick and incapacitated that day and very much would have wanted to be here. I want to commend the board for the actions, taking steps at the last meeting concerning proposals about the 5-day waiting period and the threat to schools. I do have some additional proposals that I was considering at that time, and I know that, again, Commissioner Miller, thank you for the various proposals that you put forward. I appreciate and commend your leadership in bringing the motion to the last BOCC meeting, directing staff to draft a proposed ordinance banning assault weapon sales in Hillsborough County. I read your comments, and I felt they were excellent and on point. I regret that I wasn't here to be able to second your motion, but now that I'm here, I'd like to provide an opportunity, if you care to make that motion again.
Commissioner Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, I appreciate your words. I appreciate the fact that you agree with me and the ban of assault weapons, not only in Hillsborough County, not only this state, but across this country. As I said before, assault weapons are made for killing the enemy in war, and the people that have died in this country are not our enemy. Just day before yesterday, when the police officer was shot, they went inside the home of that gentleman, and he had an AR-15, had 90 rounds of ammunition. Even though he had a mental problem, the question is what was he going to do with that? I do appreciate your concern. I do appreciate the kind words, but I learned a long time ago in this process how to count votes. And I think that if I brought it back up at this particular point in time, you second it, it will go down. The statement has been made by this board. I don't think that I wish we could get the votes to do that, but with all due respect to you, I think that if I made the motion, you seconded, we still would have the votes. So I would say that at this particular point in time, let's not do that. However, I do believe that there is a movement in this country, in this state, and in this county to ban the sale of assault weapons to those, to anyone. I do believe that move is coming. When will we get there? I don't know. I hope it's soon. Because like I said before, why does anyone need an assault weapon? Why does anyone need an AR-15 or any of those weapons? I just don't see the need for it unless you're fighting a war. So I understand your point. I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate you wanting to do this again, but I don't think the votes are there.
I appreciate your comments. Commissioner Miller, I still would like to entertain the motion. I guess I'll put forward the motion to request that the staff draft a proposed ordinance banning assault weapon sales in Hillsborough County. Thank you.
Okay, any comments from members? Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to postpone the item indefinitely.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to postpone the item indefinitely. It does need a second. It is debatable. So do we have a second to his motion to postpone indefinitely?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hagan, you're recognized.
I guess procedurally I'll ask the county attorney, is that the equivalent of tabling? Commissioner
Yes.
Miller is a parliamentarian here, but it's my understanding there's two separate tabling options, or?
So there's, under Robert's rules and our rules of order, there's postpone indefinitely, and there's lay on the table. Lay on the table is more akin to the board expressing a desire to have it come at a future meeting. Postpone indefinitely is really to prevent the item from being considered during the session. Now here, the way our rules of order are set up, it doesn't prevent it from being brought up at a future meeting, but it would prevent it from being brought up again at this meeting.
That is correct. I have the words here from Robert's rules.
Do I still have the floor?
Yes.
I wasn't at the last meeting. I was at on a previously scheduled family vacation, but can you repeat your recommendation that was made during the last board discussion?
Yeah, so I don't believe we got to this discussion at the last board meeting. However, in 2013, our office was asked to render a legal opinion on the county banning assault weapons. We researched it at that time and determined that the state had passed legislation that preempted counties and cities from regulating firearms, including assault weapons. So that our office is on the record on that. We've reviewed the statutes and they've not changed materially, so that opinion would stand at this time.
Is that still your recommendation?
That my opinion would be that that an ordinance the county would adopt would be preempted by state law.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner White, you're recognized.
I'd like a legal opinion as well. So you're interpreting a session to mean a meeting of the Board of County Commissioners versus reorganization to reorganization?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And in addition to that, even without that interpretation, we have an item in our rules of procedure called renewal, which really opens up the ability for any commissioner to bring up an item at each new meeting. So we've, as a body, chosen to be very open in terms of that type of process.
Right. Commissioner Chris, you're recognized.
Thank you to our county attorney. Along with that statute, are there any sanctions or penalties if that statute is breached or broken?
So, Commissioner, I apologize. I'm not as prepared as I was at the last meeting. My recollection is that there are penalties in the statute for enacting or enforcing a ordinance in violation of the preemption. Those penalties are quite severe in my mind, and
what might they be?
I can't quote them off the top of my head. I believe that there is a substantial fine in the neighborhood of $5,000 that could be imposed by a court, and then there's authority for the governor to remove individuals from office. However, cities around the state have attempted to, at least one, and perhaps more than one, attempted to challenge that in court. At this point, that hasn't occurred, so I think there is an open question as to the validity of that. But certainly, there would be substantial risk to the commissioners if you all were to enact an ordinance of this type. I don't want to downplay that. I just did want to get on the record that while the statute does read with substantial penalties, I don't want us to assume that they would be enforced as written. What comes back to me also as I'm speaking is that the fine is up to $5,000, so it's not an automatic $5,000 fine. But it has been my opinion and continues to be that those penalties would be relevant at such time as the board were to enact an ordinance or to seek to enforce the ordinance.
All right, I have a question of our legislative director, Brandon Wagner. With the climate in Tallahassee as it is and as it has been for the last 8 years, where basically you've had a state government at odds with local government. In your opinion as our expert and our legislative director, would any action taken here in opposition to the legislative intent just further that divide and put us at risk of possibly losing our entire agenda?
For the record, Brandon Wagner, Operations and Legislative Affairs Officer. To your point, Commissioner, there has been a growing divide between the state and locals in terms of authority, in terms of preemption discussions. To this specific instance, it's really a determination of the governor whether or not to enforce what the law provides him the powers to do. I think any actions that we take that would be considered in contradiction to statute would be viewed negatively by the legislature. As to what ultimate actions the governor might take, I can't speak to.
Or the legislature.
Or the legislature in future sessions can enact further legislation, correct?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
I don't know if you are aware, Chip, but I wasn't sure when you had just mentioned, but there is an appeal right now in terms of a challenge in terms of those as being unconstitutional, the fine and the removal from office.
Yes, the legal position, in my view, is since this is so targeted at a particular political issue, and going back to the Magna Carta, there's a concept in American law of proportionality to the violation and the penalty, and most we could enact in terms of a penalty for our ordinance would be $500. To enact a fine of $5,000 based on that, it just seems a little disproportionate. However, and City of Tallahassee has challenged that, and I believe there's another one pending, which may be the one that you're referencing. No court has ruled on that, so the risk that you all would be facing in enacting an ordinance is the potential of having those sanctions actually be enforced. So I don't want to downplay that, but I do want to indicate there is a legal analysis that would, if the board were to choose to go forward, to be able to defend the commission if you all were to choose to do that. The opinion in 2013 was recommending not taking that risk, but if the commission were to decide to move forward, you all certainly would have that prerogative, and it would be our duty to defend you to the best of our ability.
Thank you. Board, I would just like to say I was incredibly touched and taken by the students at Parkland and by their courage, their standing up, and the thought that these assault weapons are there to be used at any time, the kind of damage that they do to bodies. I think we just heard from Mr. Dolgen about one young woman, but those are weapons of war. When they hit a person's body, they explode internally, and you have very little chance of survival. So again, appreciate the discussion. I felt very strongly that this had to be raised and at least considered again.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to postpone indefinitely item F1, and it was seconded by Commissioner Hagan. Is there any further discussion or questions?
The motion was not to postpone, to postpone indefinitely item F1.
Postpone indefinitely the ban on assault weapons. Yes, which I was in F1. Okay, if we have one motion on the floor to postpone indefinitely the ban on assault weapon motion, which was technically in the F1 motion. So any further questions or discussion? This is on the motion to postpone indefinitely. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 4-3. Commissioners Higginbotham, Kemp, and Miller voted no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that takes you to your 11 a.m. time certain, which is F4, which is Commissioner Murman's item concerning CareerSource board.
Excuse me, I had other motions related to this.
That's the F1 item?
Yes.
Okay, continue with your motions.
Thank you. My second motion relates to the Florida Constitution revision process. As you all know, the Constitution Revision Commission is currently meeting to consider many amendments to the Florida Constitution. that will be put on the ballot for voters this November. And among these proposals that would ban the sale are proposals that would ban the sale and transfer of assault weapons. From the Tampa Bay Times on Monday, which published a Palm Beach Post editorial, they said that according to a recent Quinnipiac poll, 62% of Florida voters support a nationwide ban on the sale of assault weapons. A Florida Atlantic University poll found a majority of voters of every party affiliation supporting stricter gun laws. 69% support a ban on assault rifles. And a public polling policy survey commissioned by a coalition of progressive groups found that 73% of Floridians would like an opportunity to vote on a semi-automatic assault weapons ban. The editorial urges the Constitution Revision Commission to give Florida the opportunity to vote on this, and I agree. So my second motion is to draft a letter of support on behalf of this board in favor of placing a proposal, let the voters decide, on the ballot to ban the sale or transfer of assault weapons in the state of Florida.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Kemp, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Is there any discussion or questions? I need to ask the county attorney. I thought we were restricted on anything involving constitutional amendments or the revision commission or anything like that.
So the commission, the county commission, previously had a board policy against weighing in on constitutional amendments. You all withdrew that some meetings ago.
We did.
You all did.
Just want to make sure that we're on the record of being able to consider any action.
So I don't recall the meeting it was done at, but I do recall that action being taken.
Yeah, we undid the policy, absolutely. Okay, Commissioner Chris, you're recognized.
Yeah, for some clarity, Chip, supporting this, would it in any way, shape, or form fall under the same category as the previous motion?
No, sir. This, as I understood the motion, would be to simply send a letter to the Constitutional Revision Commission asking for them to take action. So in my view, it would not risk or invoke any of the provisions under the state statutes referenced earlier related to preemption of regulation of firearms.
Pat, could you restate your motion?
Mm-hmm. My motion is that the staff draft a letter of support on behalf of the board in favor of placing a proposal on the ballot to ban the sale or transfer of assault weapons in the state of Florida.
Okay, Commissioner White, you're recognized.
And Commissioner Chris, not that I should be involved in what you and Commissioner Kemp are understanding, but Mr. Fletcher, am I correct in saying that if this motion passes, if this were to be received favorably by the Constitutional Revision Commission and then go out to a vote of the people and it passes, then that would be embedded in the Florida Constitution? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Without speaking to the Constitutional Revision Commission's processes, because they have a whole set of rules related to how they work, but the ultimate result.
But the letter that this board would send would be asking that it be embedded in the Florida Constitution.
That's correct.
I just want to make sure that's clear for the record.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Higginbotham,
Thank
you're
you.
recognized.
I won't support the motion that's on the floor by Ms. Kemp, just as I would not have supported her motion that she made on the assault ban. I feel strongly about the wording of our Constitution and the rights of gun owners. I did not support Commissioner White's motion because I thought it was sending a wrong signal to keeping debate open and opportunities open. But I want to be clear on the record as to what my position is on the assault ban weaponry. But I won't be supporting Commissioner Kemp's motion.
Okay. I see no other questions from members. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Kemp, seconded by Commissioner Miller. And let's restate the motion just so everybody's clear what they're voting on.
That staff draft a letter of support on behalf of this board in favor of placing a proposal on the ballot to ban the sale or transfer of assault weapons in the state of Florida.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion failed 2-5. Commissioners Christ, Hagan, Higginbotham, Murman, and White voted no.
Okay.
I have one more
Okay,
motion.
thank you.
My third motion relates to our county ordinances. I had talked extensively with our county attorney with regards to this. They're very complex, the way the state and the local ordinance and federal law interact. But I understand there are some limitations. I understand there are limitations on what local government can do based on state law. However, I believe we should ensure that we're doing everything we can consistent with state law. So I'm moving that staff review our county firearms laws and report back whether there are additional changes we can make consistent with state law to close loopholes that allow persons to obtain firearms, including specifically AR-15s and similar rifles, without undergoing a background check or a waiting period.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Kemp, second by Commissioner Miller. Is there any discussion? Or Chip, you have a question? I can tell.
Well, just what we had discussed was there's a state constitutional provision that allows counties to require background checks. The last meeting, we voted to have us start working on an ordinance to go from 3 to 5 days. Into going over those ordinances with Commissioner Kemp, there are a number of issues with the way those were drafted previously as compared to other ordinances in the county, and so and other counties. So what I had taken away from that we would work on was to clarify that language to close loopholes like she described. But just to be clear for this board, it was not to go outside of that constitutional authority that the state constitution has already provided to counties.
Well, then what's the purpose?
So the state constitution talks about regulation of locations where the public has a right to entry. And all of our ordinance does is repeats that. And that has resulted in a number of fairly varied legal interpretations. Other counties have defined that somewhat, and that's what we would be anticipating bringing back in an ordinance revision.
Okay, and that wouldn't have been included in what Commissioner Miller's action would have been?
It was not something that we were looking at doing as a result of Commissioner Miller's action at the prior meeting. However, it would be part of the same ordinance, and I would recommend bringing it back when we bring back the item for Commissioner Miller's motion, if the board would like to proceed in this regard.
Commissioner Miller?
Let me get a clear understanding. So therefore, the motion that the motion that passed that gives you, asking you all to go back and draft it on us, will take care of what Commissioner Kemp is?
No,
No?
I'm not being clear. I'm sorry. So when the commission voted last time, we were just looking at changing the 3 days to the 5 days,
Right.
and that would pretty much be it. What Commissioner Kemp has identified is that the constitutional provision creates some ambiguity as to the scope of the application of the background check and the waiting period. This would, and there are folks that argue, I don't think we agree with this, but there are folks that argue that there are significant aspects of gun sales that aren't covered that logically, to me, and I think most people would think would be covered. So the request would be for us to have language similar to other counties that kind of define what it means to be open to the public. And we would, in my opinion, tailor that based on public places of public convenience that follow a whole host of other county ordinances where we regulate commercial transactions.
Okay, so bottom line is it basically has to do with the places.
Yes.
Specifically, is what her motion really has to do with, is places where you can purchase firearms.
The scope of the application of the background check, and then what we would do is then speak to the places where it would cover.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner White, you recognize.
Mr. Fletcher, or perhaps Commissioner Kemp, may I just ask more directly, is the intent of the motion to try to close the gun hole, the gun show loophole?
That would be one of them. What we've learned based on inquiry is there are a variety of different legal opinions out there as to the scope of the application, and that would certainly be one of them, yes, sir.
But if what Commissioner Kemp is asking for ultimately passes and gets incorporated into Hillsborough County rules, ordinance, whatever it's embedded in, that wouldn't stop a citizen if they take issue with that from going to Pasco, Pinellas, Polk, Manatee to purchase a firearm at one of those venues, correct? Provided that their county laws don't address it as such.
Correct. However, I would say that I don't know that, I think it's our opinion that it does apply to gun shows. So it's an area of some ambiguity and legal disagreement is my impression.
Well, I'm a firm believer that these types of regulations are best left up to the state. This is truly one where we can't address these issues piecemeal, county by county. So for that reason alone, I'm not going to be able to support the motion on the floor.
Thank you. No other questions in the queue? And we are on motion by Commissioner Kemp, second by Commissioner Miller. Do you want to restate your motion, just so we're clear?
I move that the staff review our county firearms laws and report back on whether there are additional changes we can make consistent with state law to close loopholes that allow persons to obtain firearms, including specifically AR-15s and similar rifles, without undergoing a background check or waiting period.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion failed 2-5. Commissioners Chris, Hagan, Higginbotham, Murman, and White voted no.
Are you done?
I am finished.
Okay, thank you very much. And we are now on item F4. I will need to, since my item, I need to pass the gavel over to my Vice Chair, Commissioner Chris.
Okay.
Is it okay just to jump in?
You are recognized to jump in.
Okay. This is plain and simple, exactly what it is.
Nothing's plain and simple here.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think it has come time where we review all of our appointments to the CareerSource Tampa Bay Board of Directors, and what I'm doing is requesting board approval of all current CareerSource Board appointees to reapply for their appointments as provided for in federal law, and consistent with this board's discussion at the February 1st, 2018 Board of County Commission meeting. I do have a second half to this motion, and I'll bring that up after this one. But I think we need to have all of those board appointees reviewed by our economic development staff prior to the board's discussion and approval. And I do want to make you all aware that we have in our policy right now, the residency requirement for people appointed to the CareerSource Tampa Bay Board states they have to be registered to vote in Hillsborough County, but they do not have to reside in Hillsborough County. And I think that will be my third motion, is to change that. But I wanted to let you know that 7 board members on the CareerSource Tampa Bay Board do not reside in Hillsborough County right now, but they are registered to vote in Hillsborough County. So thought that was unusual, but it's plain and simple, the motion. We need to do this, and we need to get back to the business of creating jobs and making that a priority for us here in Hillsborough County, and send a message to our constituents that we are serious about getting people. We are a fast-growing community. We need to have jobs available, and CareerSource is an important resource for those jobs for many people that come here. So that is my motion on the floor.
Commissioner White, are you seconding the motion?
I'm going to second the motion, and I have comments as well.
Okay, you're recognized for comments.
Okay. Well, I'm most definitely going to support the motion on the floor. I have been going through a process of deciding whether or not I want to quote, interview the candidates one-on-one. I haven't made that decision yet. I'll have to look at the process if this motion passes, which I'm sure it will. I'll have to look at the process that the economic development staff will utilize to vet the candidates. But Mr. Van Arsdal, can you ask Ms. Finley to encourage the candidates to reach out to the commissioners' offices just in case the commissioners have any questions or would like to speak to the applicants ahead of time?
That's a good idea.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And
Okay.
Commissioner Chris, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the appropriate time, I have a motion that I'm going to make as well that deals with the structure of the board. Rather than do it as an amendment to the amendment and make this complex, I'd rather do it separately. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that I'm going to be offering a motion at some point.
Commissioner Kemp.
Commissioner Kemp.
We can't but be greatly disturbed by what has occurred at the CareerSource board and the way it's been handled, and to untangle the bureaucratic, the bureaucratic structure and the governing of that board is a task in itself. I thought things were tough with transit, but I've never seen a structure so entangled and so unaccountable. It's truly stunning. But I also have, and I appreciate this motion and certainly will support it, but I also have a couple motions afterwards with regards to the search after, and they might also be what Commissioner Christ has, but I also would not want to.
Well, I have two more motions. So, and I do want to say to y'all, because I know you're ready to just jump in, get this cleaned up, and get a new CEO and move forward. But we don't have all the information yet. Looking at Christine Beck, she and I have been involved. We are in the process of getting the financial information now of what it costs. I think to make any motions right now for the structure would be premature until we know. But you'll see in my next motion that we need to start the process of discussing that. But we're on this motion right now, and we should dispose of that before we get to the other ones.
Okay. For the disposal of the motion, is there any further discussion?
Can you repeat the motion, please?
Okay. Review all appointments through CareerSource Tampa Bay Board of Directors. Request all current CareerSource Board appointees to reapply for their appointments as provided in federal law and consistent with this board's prior discussion at the February 1st, 2018 Board of County Commissioners meeting, to have board appointees reviewed by our economic development staff prior to this board's discussion and appointment.
Okay. Clean and simple. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will open the board for a vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Commissioner Murman, you recognize for another motion?
Okay, this is, and like I said, I've been working with the county attorney's office, specifically Christine Beck, on this, and our economic development staff, Ken Jones. They've been incredible support throughout all this. It's been very trying, I guess I would say, in calmer words. He has hired an attorney, and she's been very active. But anyway, I do think that I would like to ask the county attorney and the economic development staff to come back once they have all the information of the cost and of the different options, and that would be stay as is, have a new CEO with combined governance functions, or completely separate. Have a new CEO, move everything back to Tampa and Hillsborough County, and have that. And at that point, then we can move to the process of hiring the new CEO. Once we make the decision on which way we want to go of those three things, those three options, then, and I know Mr. Merrill and I have discussed this quite a bit, then I think then we can get into the process of hiring the new CEO and getting that process started through our Economic Development Department and with the county attorney. So that is my motion.
Second.
Okay, can
Commissioner
you
White.
repeat that motion again?
Okay. That request staff to come back with a plan going forward for CareerSource Tampa Bay, including but not limited to governance, administration, and hiring of a new CEO, reviewed by our economic development staff and the county attorney's office prior to this board's discussion and appointment.
So you're basically asking them to bring back a recommendation for a plan?
No, yes, I mean, we are waiting for information from the CareerSource board right now. We have combined boards, and they have all the financial information of what it will cost if we want to bring that back in-house. Because we need to have that information before we can move forward. I mean, you would want to know that.
Well, collect the information.
And they are getting the information now for us. It was supposed to be ready last Friday. I wanted to have that ready for this meeting today. But the issue is just not ready yet. So I think we need to empower our staff to, once they have this information, to come back to this board with that information and a plan to move forward and a recommendation.
And we have in discussion and/or debate 3 so far in the queue. Commissioner White.
And there's 3 options. Stay as is, fully combined with one CEO, and there are organizations locally that do prefer that we stay in that route. We also could hire a new CEO, which I highly recommend, but we need the information on combined governance and administration, or just going completely separate, opening up our whole new office, but that's going to come at a cost. So, and it's going to be, it's just going to come at a cost. So there's 3 people in the queue. Commissioner White's first.
Thank you, Commissioner Murman, and I'm glad that your motion has language that speaks to including but not limited to in it. I had missed that the first time you read your motion. First and foremost, I'm not trying to hijack your issue here. I know that you sit on the CareerSource Tampa Bay board, but since we're only asking for a report to come back at this point for us to analyze, one thing that I would like to ask the economic development staff to consider including in this report is whether or not we have the capability for a Hillsborough County government staff member to staff the director position at CareerSource Tampa Bay. Not saying we would necessarily do that, but I would at least like to see that option on the table in the report.
Absolutely. That's the CEO that would just be for Tampa Bay.
Okay, Commissioner Kemp.
Thank you. I guess I just don't feel as strongly or anywhere near the need to wait to hear what the financial information is. I think we have paid dearly already for this management and lack of oversight, and I'd like to make a substitute motion. My motion would be that this board, and as I understand because of the entanglements, that we can only request of the Tampa Bay board and send out our sentiments about this. But we request that the Tampa Bay CareerSource board consider separating services from CareerSource Pinellas exclusively. Consider that option.
Well, that option will be definitely, that is one of the 3 options.
Right.
That will definitely be considered. And this is going to happen pretty quickly. I would say by the probably first meeting in April, we can come back with this information and we can kind of set forth. We're just waiting to get.
When I use the word consider, it's to ask the Tampa Bay CareerSource board to consider, because we have to have them do it. But for us to have already decided that this is the, instead of the three options that you present, that we already, I'm already there. I would like to see these boards separated and back to what they were originally, because at least we'd have that measure of oversight. And
the CareerSource Tampa Bay Board doesn't necessarily have to make that decision because we control the budget and the appointments to the board. So I'd have to ask Christine Beck if she, I don't think that CareerSource Tampa Bay Board is going to make that decision on whether we're going to separate or not.
Point of parliamentary procedure, I think I beat Commissioner Miller to the punch. Commissioner Kemp's trying to put a motion on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
I can
Sorry.
tell you based upon the language of the motion, I won't be supporting it, but I think she does deserve to be asked if
I
there's
was
a
going to
second.
second it for discussion. Now go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Christine Beck with the County Attorney's Office. You do have rights with the budget and with the appointments and so forth, but it probably is still procedurally correct to have it go as a request. That CareerSource Board is a nonprofit legal entity that is charged with the duty of, you know, hiring the CEO. You can make recommendations, you can make things for them to strongly consider and to give input on, but at the end of the day, it's going to be their decision with regard to the hiring of the CEO.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'm next up in the queue, and I've got some pretty strong feelings here. And it's not that I want to hijack your issue. I don't. But, you know, jobs are important to all of us. What has happened here is embarrassing for all of us. And I have a different perspective. I'm a regionalist, and I serve on a number of boards that are regional, like the Airport Board, like the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Authority, and the list goes on. I see our market as one large market. And there are a lot of major employers that bridge the bay. And as we go after future employers, it would be to our advantage to work together with Pasco and Pinellas County to go after them, because Pinellas has attributes that we don't have, and we have attributes Pinellas doesn't have, and Pasco as well. And working together, we're only stronger. And having served in the legislature for nearly 20 years, I saw who usually won the opportunities, and it was the regions of the state that were working collectively together. And there is a strong advantage to having a regional authority here. What the problem is, how it's managed and how there is no oversight, because you've got two autonomous boards that cannot communicate, do not communicate, and as a result, staff has carte blanche. So, you know, I at the right point, and I'm not sure if this is it or not, the motion that I was going to offer up takes us in a little different direction. What it does is it leaves the board, leaves the organization as regional, but changes the board and makes the board more like any other regional authorities board. You know, and I'm just going to state it, I'm not making it. At some point, I'd like to make the motion or substitute a motion to direct staff to look into the possibilities of what it would take to reconstitute a regional CareerSource governance board, which, with its members being appointed by each of the counties it would serve and the governor.
Okay.
So if it's Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough, then Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough commissions would vent and appoint their members to that one board, leaving open seats for the governor. And we would have one oversight board responsible for the agency and staff accountable to that one board. No different than the Airport Authority or the Port Authority or any other of our regional entities. And it would fix the problem and allow us to remain strong. If we pull it back in-house, we're going to cripple ourselves, because, you know, there may be job opportunities for a Hillsborough resident in Pinellas, or there may be job opportunities for a Pasco resident in Hillsborough. I mean, I'm looking at news media right now, half of which of you operate on the other side of the bay. And what if there are Hillsborough residents that are skilled and talented in video technology that want to get a job at your studio? You know, there are numerous opportunities in the market, and we're stronger as one market.
Can I respond?
Yes.
Okay, so now we've got two of the three options I laid out being kind of proposed by two members. And what I'm asking for is 2 weeks to get the information, to come back, and then you all can make your motions on what you think is the best option. And then we send the letter to the CareerSource Tampa Bay Board before their next meeting in April, telling them what they'd like to do. As a matter of process, I would like to see that happen. I can tell you my personal opinion is we need a separate CEO, but I'm like Commissioner Chris. I think the regional administration might be worth looking at keeping. A separate CEO is definitely going to change things in a long way. But I'm just saying that if we just stick to my motion, we'll get there by the time we get to the next board meeting. And I just, as a matter of process, I think it probably should go that way. I appreciate both, and I think both should be considered, but there's also a third option. And so that's the one I just said. So, you know, I think we need all the information before we can get there.
Commissioner White, you're up in the queue.
Thank you. Commissioner Murman, you just about took the words out of my mouth. Commissioner Kemp, I'm not going to be able to support your substitute motion because Commissioner Murman's leading on this issue. She's intimately aware of the issues at play here, and I'm going to support her path forward. Commissioner Chris, just something I wanted to float out there to you. Again, pointing back to the including but not limited to language in Commissioner Murman's motion, perhaps you would just want to ask economic development staff if they would include an analysis of your idea with respect to the makeup of the board in the report as well. I think that can just be done as an informal ask since the motion does say including but not limited to, and they could include an analysis of that idea for us. Just an idea.
And
I think that that's a workable solution.
And I also have to say, Pinellas CareerSource Board is kind of involved in this too. So we've got to coordinate all this, pulling out like what employees are going to come here, which are going to go there. I mean, it's all information that needs to get worked out by staff, and so we can move forward in a very positive way for the people that need jobs in our community. Commissioner Kemp's next.
Thank you. I'll withdraw my substitute motion. My sentiment remains. Okay. I feel very strongly about that. And I guess it can come forward after, and I won't respond to some of the other things because it looks like we'll have that discussion later. Although I think if we called up staff, there's just to clarify so people won't think differently about this, that I think it's set by federal law. What these board compositions have to be, so there's no merging of boards or anything like that, because that's not under our jurisdiction, nor even the states. But also that certainly I'm certain that our board, even when it was just Hillsborough County or Tampa Bay CareerSource, was looking at jobs throughout the region. It didn't limit them to only looking at jobs in this county, but I just like to clarify that so the public doesn't think any differently.
Commissioner Miller.
Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. I was going to ask Commissioner Kemp to withdraw her motion because Commissioner Murman, your explanation was much more clear than your motion was. I agree with you that now we probably need to wait for staff to bring that information back in a couple of weeks. I didn't understand that in your motion, but you made it much more clear.
It was written legally.
Oh, that's the problem. Okay. Ms. Beck, did you write that? Uh-oh.
No.
So I was going to ask Commissioner Kemp to withdraw it. I am not jumping up and down about Commissioner Chris's motion. I really am not, because I have seen regional entities that have not really been up to par. I'm not quite sure this is where we need to be going, but I'll wait on that. So I'm going to support your motion.
I promise I will bring back.
Congratulations, Ms. Beck. Congratulations. If you'd
Yes,
written
congratulations.
if you'd written this motion, I was going to have a recall. No, I'm just kidding.
She's the one that sat behind me in those CareerSource meetings. And I got to tell you, when that attorney started saying, Murman's operating outside her, you know, she was going after us, the county, all of us, and she was steady hand.
I just wanted to briefly say thank you for your confidence in our office, and Chip's leaving very big shoes to fill, and I just pledged you to do my very best to continue to provide the high-quality legal service that you expect and deserve. Thank you.
Yeah, so,
All right. I don't see anyone left in the queue. Is there any more discussion or debate?
Mr. Chairman, briefly, I just
Okay.
want to make sure that if the motion passes, that economic development staff has heard that they should include an analysis of staffing it with county folks and also analysis of truly regionalizing the board.
oh yeah, all three options are going to be considered, all
Thank
three.
you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I mean, it's incumbent upon us to look at the options available and to determine what produces the greatest amount of fruit for our efforts. So, you know, I think that they got that. All right, seeing no more debate, no more discussion, no one left in the queue, the clerk will open the board and we'll have a vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Madam Chair, do you have any more motions?
No.
We're
I'm
motioned
done.
out. Okay.
It's
And
okay. We're back
my
on the-
motion is going to be adopted without motion by directive, so that's taken care of. So
Okay,
we're back on the agenda.
Yeah, we need to move on to the
Okay.
agenda. Mr. Merrill, and I guess I just want to ask y'all, do you want to break for lunch? Okay,
Okay.
go.
So we have two items for 11:15, B3 and B6. These two items complete the action that you took a couple meetings ago, I guess, on the tournament sports complex project. So let's take B3 first.
Morning, Commissioners. Tom Fessler, Management Budget Department. Item B3 is asking you to do a couple of different things. Part A on the agenda is asking you to approve an interlocal agreement between the Tampa Sports Authority and Hillsborough County to operate the county's new tournament sports complex. Part B is asking you to approve a $250,000 budget amendment to realign funds within the county budget to provide for startup costs, that, operating startup costs that will be necessary in fiscal year 18. On an annual basis, the TSA will be required to present the county with an operating and capital budget, and that will be subject to approval by the county administrator. They will also be required to provide us with financial reports on an annual basis, and the county will fund any shortfalls that are identified within the budget submitted by the Tampa Sports Authority. The annual operating cost of the facility is anticipated to be commensurate with other county athletic facilities. The primary difference between other county facilities and this facility is that this facility will focus on attracting tourist dollars. It is also anticipated that the net cost of the facility will decrease over time as additional revenue is coming in. The complex will be used primarily for tournament play, and it is anticipated to provide a significant economic benefit to the county. In terms of a tourist dollar direct spending impact, the impact is projected to be $7 million in year one, and the projections are for it to go up to $25 million by year 5. I guess the final thing that I did need to put on the record is that in the version of the agreement that's on the agenda, there was a clause or a section in there that identified that there was a cap on fixture and equipment expenditures of $750,000. That is being removed from the agreement, and the definition of FF&E is being modified to indicate that the cost of the FF&E is included within the county's fiscal year 18 and/or 19 budget. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're running way behind. I'm hungry, and since we've had 11 votes on this project, I'm going to keep my remarks brief. I did want to provide a brief update and status of the park. To date, considerable work has been performed. Design and permitting for site development has been completed. Preliminary site work is complete, including filling the borrow pit, pond excavation, rough grading, clearing, and grubbing of the site. Currently, it's my understanding the contractors are a quarter of the way through the work, scheduled to be complete in June, and they're going to allow for the grass to grow in. We're anticipating a November opening in order to be able to host a major tournament in December. To date, $2.7 million has been spent on the park. Today's item is to approve the Sports Authority to operate the facility. Staff determined that this was the most efficient model for operations due to their expertise in grass maintenance, their ability to purchase in bulk, and the fact that they are not incorporating a profit margin into their budget. I think Tom did an excellent job describing that it's very important to point out that the operating cost for this park is commensurate with county costs for other large facilities. And in fact, due to the projected revenue that will be generated at this facility, the operating costs will likely be less than a couple of our parks. The primary difference is this facility will focus on attracting tourism through revenue-generating events. The economic impact and revenue generated will be far greater with this facility because of the room nights, consumer spending, and revenue generated at the park. We have a very conservative pro forma, which estimates a $7 million economic impact in year one and a $25 million in the fifth year. As the backup indicates, this is in addition to the venue rental and supplementary revenues from sports and other events. It's very important to point out that our operational costs are anticipated to decrease over time as revenues increase. In fact, there's a very good chance and likely this park will pay for itself in the future, which is unheard of. With all that, I'm happy to move approval and just want to thank staff for their work. I know they put a lot of work into it.
Thank you very much. We have a motion by Commissioner Higgins, seconded by Commissioner Higginbotham on item B3. Is there any question or discussion? I think we're all worn out. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Item B, Scott Stromer, Procurement Services. Item B6 is a companion to B3. It has three parts. Part A is asking the board to approve and execute the assignment of contract and acceptance of assignment between Tampa Sports Authority and Hillsborough County, through which Tampa Sports Authority assigns all rights, interests, and obligations under its contract with Himes Electric Company for installation of LED sports field lighting at the countywide soccer complex. The contract with Himes Electric is in the amount of $2,345,690. Part B is asking the board to approve a budget amendment to appropriate $2,350,000 of the 3-cent tourist development tax reserve to the countywide soccer complex capital project in order to provide sufficient funding for that assigned contract. And lastly, Part C is asking the board, contingent on the approval of items A and B, approve change order number 1 to the contract with Himes Electric Company for the purpose of incorporating certain standard county contract requirements and forms at no additional cost to the county and no change in the contract time. All of those, Procurement Services does recommend approval.
Okay, Commissioner Hagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of points. Since this was and this was pointed out, since this facility will be a tourism driver, tourist tax dollars, not general revenue dollars, are being used for this expense. Several things drove staff to recommend this approach, including Commissioner Kemp's desire to pursue LED lighting in our parks, and it is cost effective to purchase the lighting up front, saving dollars and reducing our yearly operational cost, totaling approximately $600,000 in savings by going this route. So with that, I'll move approval, and again, thank staff for their work on this.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hagan, seconded by Commissioner Miller on item B6. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
And I wanted to ask Commissioner Hagan just one thing, and it didn't relate, but I know the P3 on this sports didn't work at the beginning, but down the road, I'm saying down the road, if a private company wanted to come in, would that be an option for us down the road?
I'm totally open for that option. I believe staff considered that. I know I passed along one proposal to them, and I know I can speak for Eric Hart's position, who's here. He doesn't care one way or the other. I mean, he's doing this to benefit the county, to benefit this park. But if there's a better proposal out there,
Okay,
we're all- I
so
think
you're
we're all in
open,
agreement,
you're
all in
open to
agreement.
any options
Oh,
down the
absolutely,
road?
absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
A better proposal for operating it,
Yeah.
not building it.
Yeah, that's
just
what I
wanna make
mean.
clear, yeah.
Anything that could help cut our contributions or
Yeah.
whatever to
Okay.
the,
Yep.
thank you.
And thank you for your support.
Yeah, congratulations. Okay,
So before we take the 11:30 times certain, B2 requires a supermajority, and I just want to be sure that we do that and have enough commissioners here, so if we could just quickly take B2, which is a funding agreement between the county and between the board and the county fair on phosphate severance tax funding for a project.
we do need a motion to waive the rules to go ahead and take this out of order.
No, but
Excuse me,
not
did we vote on
necessarily.
B6?
Huh?
We voted on B6.
We did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, B2, we don't need a motion to,
To go to ahead of the time certain for 11:30?
no, because B2 is not a time certain, just.
Okay.
leave it. Go ahead.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Forrest Turbeville, Conservation, Environmental Lands Management. The item before you today consists of 3 different parts. The first is to approve a second modification to the funding agreement between Hillsborough County and the Greater Hillsborough County Fair Association. This is for the existing 2015 phosphate severance tax funded project. And this is to provide additional funding up to $100,000 for capital improvements. The approval of this item will increase the maximum funding award amount under the original agreement as amended from $707,000 to $807,000. The second request today is to approve the resolution finding the capital funding request from the association and other documents provided by the association meet the requirements for funding and the funding serves a purpose. And then finally, as Mr. Merrill mentioned, to approve by a supermajority vote in accordance with board policy, the use of phosphate severance tax funds for the association's proposed improvements. Pursuant to board policy, the use of these phosphate funds has been reviewed by the county attorney's office, and funding of $100,000 for the second modification was approved by the board as part of its CIP budget process.
Thank you very much, Forrest. We have a motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Kemp, to approve item B2. I see no further discussion or questions. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Yes, actually, I'm sorry, also B12 requires a supermajority vote. So if we can take that, this item, so after Hurricane Irma, we took a very detailed look at our strengths and weaknesses to be able to respond to events like that. One of the most glaring and most important weaknesses we found was in our 4 maintenance facilities across the county. Public Works, Public Utilities, and Fleet stage all of their equipment and assets there before, during, and after an event to be able to respond to residents and take care of emergencies. Those facilities are 40 years old. They are not hardened to any level of hurricane protection. They're exposed, and they are our front line. So what I'm recommending is that we replace those facilities. The cost to replace all 4 of them is $87 million. We have found ways to cut that cost in half in terms of ongoing recurring costs by selling off some county surplus property, by using a relatively small amount of our catastrophic reserves, and through an innovative P3 arrangement that'll provide us some cash. So that on an ongoing basis, we'll be financing about half the cost, which is about $40 million or so, that would require debt service for a 30-year bond issue of about $2 to $2.5 million a year. But these are our most important assets when we respond to emergencies, and I believe that we need to make sure we're ready.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Kemp, seconded by Commissioner White on item B12. This is absolutely something that has to be done. This is frontline response, and we got to make sure that we can serve our constituents in a very positive way without harming our employees being in harm's way. So is there any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Commissioner Miller? Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. I don't think we have any more supermajorities, Tom? Okay. So we can go to our 11:30 time certain, which is a special appearance by representatives of Frontier Communications to respond to inquiries primarily raised by Commissioner White about their response to the 911 outage and steps that they've taken to ensure that that does not occur again.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Chair Murman, and thank you, Commissioner White, for inviting Frontier to participate in today's meeting. I'm Allison Ellis. I'm SVP of Regulatory Affairs. With me today, I have Melanie White, who's SVP of Operations, and Dave Frezza, who's SVP of Network Operations. He oversees our network across our 29-state footprint, and other members of our Frontier team who live here in Tampa. As you know, Frontier is relatively new to the Tampa community. We provide voice, data, and video services in Hillsborough County, also in Pinellas, Sarasota, and Manatee counties, and parts of Pasco and Polk counties. We employ just over 3,000 people in the state, most of them in this 6-county area. One of the reasons we were drawn to the Tampa area is the vibrancy and growth of the business community here, which is a credit to the business-friendly economic policies that state leaders and county leaders like yourselves have advanced. We are an ardent supporter and partner in new business development and investment here in Tampa, particularly those visionary projects like the Water Street Improvement District, which we supported at the Florida legislature. We're very enthusiastic about Tampa's future and frankly about Frontier's role in it as a provider of the fiber network that is critical to its continued growth. We're very excited to be in the community at this time of incredible opportunity. I'd like to turn now to Dave Frezza, who will address more specifically Frontier's operations here in Tampa, as well as the January 31st event.
Thank you, Allison. Commissioners, thank you. Again, my name is Dave Frezza. I'm the Senior Vice President of Network Operations for Frontier Communications. I have a responsibility for caring for the network that we have in place across the 29 states, including here in the Tampa area. And I've actually relocated here about a year and a half ago. At the outset, I'd like to assure the Commission that Frontier understands the critical importance of 911 communications, both here and across our footprint. And we deeply regret that the events of January 31st impacted these services. We believe that we've taken the appropriate measures to protect against the recurrence of the event, some of which that we completed within 24 hours of the event, which I'll share with you now. The communications network is a series of national and international networks that interconnect. This interconnectivity is an essential aspect of networking. It's what allows our customers to make and receive phone calls as well as reach the World Wide Web. We purchased the links for this interconnectivity with companies such as CenturyLink Level 3, Verizon, and AT&T. Ensuring security, resiliency, and reliability is at the forefront of the industry standard interconnection process. One way we address these requirements is by establishing two connections for each of our services, both a primary and a backup for our communications traffic. Multiple failures in our signaling network paths, which are essential for traditional voice communications, are what caused challenges on January 31st. This network consists of diverse, non-intersecting routes leased from CenturyLink Level 3, and has since been supplemented with Verizon and AT&T that connect to network hubs in Charleston, West Virginia, and Durham, North Carolina. The root cause of these failures was cable work undertaken by CenturyLink on both of our transmission paths in the early morning hours of January 31st. Normally, the communication between carriers about planned maintenance activity works well, but in this case, obviously, it did not. I assure you that had CenturyLink Level 3 alerted us to the intent to work on both the primary and secondary paths, simultaneously, we would have taken actions to prevent such action and work these in sequence rather than simultaneously. Frontier's Network Operations Center, which is manned 24/7, 365, immediately responded to the outages, contacted our 911 customer service center, which engaged in communications between all the area PSAPs, including Hillsborough County. Frontier recognizes, regardless of the cause of each of these incidents, that we are ultimately responsible for the quality and resiliency of the services that we provide. Accordingly, we've taken several steps to address the root causes of these outages. Immediately following the January 31st incident, actually within 24 hours, we established an independent path, totally independent of the CenturyLink services, and we quickly moved 40% of the paths over to this new network path. Further, we've established communications with CenturyLink to ensure that they're following what we consider to be an industry standard protocol when working on services such as this and not taking out both of the services at the same time. We've also requested that our signaling paths be marked as TSP, and we have a request into the Homeland Security Department today to get those marked as such. And what that will basically do is put priority on any of those paths going forward in the event we have any issues with those paths. We've also established another 2 connections with AT&T, which is totally independent of CenturyLink. So in essence, what you have here in Tampa is not the typical or standard 2 paths that we have in all of our other areas, and it's really an industry standard. We're now up to 4 paths out of the Tampa area, and soon to have a 5th path out. So you basically have 4 to 5 times the redundancy that we would normally have. In addition to these steps, we've done a lot of outreach with the impacted communities and touch base with state and locally elected officials, as well as impacted PSAP directors, fire chiefs, and sheriffs. Our 911 team also meets quarterly with all PSAPs that we interact with. Our next PSAP meeting with what we call the 6 county PSAPs here is on April 19th, and I'll offer an invite to any of you that'd like to attend that meeting. It'll be in our St. Petersburg office. We also recognize the desire expressed by Commissioner White for an independent reassurance of our network design. We are prepared to do that, as we shared with the county last week, and can answer any specific questions about that plan. I appreciate the opportunity to present today. I want to reiterate that we are committed to the Tampa area and to providing reliable communication services to all our customers. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frezza. Thanks for coming. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you. We deal with many issues up here as a body that can become politically heated and seem like they're a big deal. But in the grand scheme of things, some of these issues are small potatoes when it comes to something like our 911 system. So that's why I wanted to address this issue. First and foremost, I want to offer a sincere, heartfelt thank you to Frontier for being willing to come and appear before this board today and offer regrets, which seem to me to be very much sincere. I have no doubt in my mind that your infrastructure is second to none. To me, this outage was all about processes, controls, safeguards. And as I jotted down the bullet points that you mentioned and steps that were taken, I can really appreciate what you've done, to assure that our 911 system is, that it's incredibly unlikely that it be taken down the way it was in January. As I've thought of what I want to ask you today, I have one question of you, and sure. I think it's an easy one. I hope it's an easy one. One of the things that you had mentioned is that you have established communication, or I'll say better communication with CenturyLink. Would you be willing to share with our staff, county staff, something, whether it's a protocol, a policy, a procedure, or something that would demonstrate that those communications have been strengthened? Because in my mind, it's that one simple area where we had a breakdown here. Is there something that you can share with county staff that would really demonstrate that that's been strengthened?
Well, I hope I answer your question correctly, and if I don't hit it, please, we'll cover it a different way. Immediately following this was a breakdown in process. You're absolutely right. It was, Frontier had received notification that there was going to be maintenance on one of these paths. There was not a communication there would be maintenance on the second. And as soon as they were both opened up, the issue started. We have since we've been on the phone regularly with CenturyLink, and they'll acknowledge as such that it was a breakdown. These weren't two issues that were across the street from each other. They were, one was in Atlanta, one was in southern Florida. That's the geography associated with it. But we have established, especially for the Tampa area, but not solely for. We're going to extend this out beyond just Florida. Regular communication as it relates to our SS7 network, which is really the cause of what drove the problems that we had on January 31st. So any work that's been even attempted to be performed on these links in Tampa, we're on, and Jack Hansen, who's our Vice President of Engineering, sitting back here, we have been in regular contact, not on the phone. Typically, you'd get an email notification, we're doing maintenance. We've established a protocol for the Tampa area that anytime they work on any of their rings, any of their network, those are conference calls and they're discussions about what exactly you're going to be doing. And quite honestly, as we're working through some of the things here to even harden what they provide to us, they've obliged us in allowing please don't do that right now. We're working on some other things to provide the survivability with AT&T and Verizon Business. And while we're doing that, let's keep that one intact. So there's a lot more. I'll just call it verbal communication. It's not all just electronic now.
So protocols such as this are almost always driven by something in writing, like a policy or a procedure. Is there something that you can provide to county staff to demonstrate that this strengthened, heightened communication is now in place?
We don't have that formally written, but we can get that formally written up for you and provide that to you.
Sure. I mean,
certainly. I understand.
You're talking to a board of directors right here. I mean, I would certainly think that's worth taking to your board of directors to implement, an official policy, within your organization that speaks to that.
Absolutely.
And if you can commit to me that you will continue to work with county staff and just give us peace of mind, we have to be able to tell the citizens of Hillsborough County with a straight face that, we have everything in place, that Frontier has everything in place possible to greatly reduce the likelihood that our 911 system is going to be knocked down. And that's really all that I'm asking. So.
Absolutely, and I'll reiterate certainly the invite in the letter that we sent last week to, really come to our network operations center, and we'll go really through the network with you and show you how it's all put together and how it operates as well. So, but I will absolutely take you up on that.
Great. And you're in communication with our fire chief and our emergency operations personnel, as we discussed.
Now, we had a great call with the fire chief about a week and a half ago, really buttoned up, and that call was really about the communication, and was there anything that we could do as a company to improve the communication between us and your PSAP specifically. So, nothing really came in that he asked, do we perform anything further. However, we keep in contact. And again, to reiterate one more point, we do have quarterly meetings. Our 911 specialists meet with the 6 PSAPs around this area on a quarterly basis. And again, I extend the invitation for April 19th. Anybody that wants to, any of you want to come to that meeting in St. Petersburg, certainly welcome, and I'll make sure you have the details for that.
Sure. Well, I want to tell you again how much it means to me that you've come out and that you've appeared before this board, which is obviously a public appearance, and very much appreciate that. I'll say to you and to Mr. Merrill that I would just kindly ask that the conversation not end today, that it can continue, that we have an open dialogue, and just make sure that we're doing everything that we possibly can to protect something that's arguably of the greatest importance with respect to what we do as a county government.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Madam
We
Chair.
really do
Commissioners.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to add
Yes, Commissioner
those
Chris,
comments.
you're recognized.
And I compliment my colleague for his tactfulness. I'm not as tactful. I don't think the transition has been a smooth one. I'm a customer and a longtime customer, both as a consumer and as a business owner, and have not been satisfied with the transition. Nor do I trust anyone coming up from the company and standing before me at the podium and telling me, trust me. I would like to see something in writing that is guaranteed to my voters and my constituents and to this board.
Okay.
Can I be clearer than that?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our time certains. We have a handful of regular items left, which I think we can get through relatively quickly if you want to keep going.
Yes.
Okay. Beginning with B1, affordable housing.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cheryl Howell, Director of Affordable Housing. I am recommending today to realign expenditures for CDBG funds for funding year 12 in the amount of $208,785, funding year 13 in the amount of $839,835, funding year 14 for $26,744, and funding year 17 for 1.07.
Second motion for approval.
Wait. We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Chris. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
And we have two management and budget items.
Yes, Commissioners, the first item I have is it's a commercial paper agreement. It's to adopt a resolution amending and restating the entire resolution, R14-024, providing for the issuance of capital improvement.
We have a motion by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner Chris, to approve item B4. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Commissioners, the next item I have is related to the Cuban Club. This is asking you to approve and restate a funding agreement between Hillsborough County and the Cuban Club Foundation, amount of $1,105,328.
Move for approval.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Chris, second by Commissioner White. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you, Tom. We have procurement items, please.
Item B7, asking the board to award and execute a construction manager at risk agreement with the highest ranked and best qualified firm, Bandy's Construction Company, in the amount of $3,963,500 for construction management, project administration, and site work required to construct Carrollwood Community Park.
Move for
Services
approval.
recommends approval.
Motion by Commissioner Chris, second by Commissioner White to approve item B7. Is there any further discussion?
Yes,
Seeing
ma'am.
none, please.
Whoa.
Oh, yes, you do. I just saw them. Okay.
I'm not
Commissioner,
going to take much time. I want to thank you I looked at all of these recently and these items and the numbers that we're putting in for utilization with minority and disadvantaged businesses are off the chain these days. I mean, they really, really are. And I just wanted to tell you, thank you very much. I know you're probably working with our staff to get these things done, but times have changed in Hillsborough County on these issues. So I just want to say thank you.
Yes, sir. Economic Development does a great job on that, and they lead that effort, and we kind of follow and make sure that it gets done. Thank you, sir.
yeah, but I have noticed a really strong MBE presence. I think it's good. Commissioner Hagan?
No, I just want to thank staff for their work on this project. Appreciate Commissioner Miller's comments, and I just want to get on the record that I expect to have the ribbon cutting in October of this year. So I'll make sure that everyone knows that.
Ribbon's been ordered.
Okay, very good. Okay, we have,
Josh.
there was a motion by
Me?
Commissioner Chris.
Actually, I think I heard Commissioner Hagan make the motion.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Hagan, seconded by Commissioner Chris. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Item B8 is asking the board to award and execute 2-year agreements with the 3 lowest responsible bidders, New Vista Builders Group Incorporated in the amount of $6 million, JVA Construction Incorporated in the amount of $4.5 million, and Caldesi Construction Company in the amount of $3 million for ongoing and as-needed moderately complex.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Chris to approve item B8. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Item B9 is asking the board to award and execute 2-year agreements with the 2 lowest responsible bidders, Cardinal Landscaping Services of Tampa Incorporated.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Chris to approve item B9. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Item B10 is asking the board to approve the recommended award distribution detailed in the notice of intent to award for transportation impact fee solicitation number 3, which will result in the purchase or buyback of $8,675,076.86 in offsets for $6,684,297.81, or approximately 77 cents per $1 face value. I do want to say just on this one here that this is a very unique process, and it's not been done anywhere. And Julie Wisner from Management Budget, Orlando Perez from County Attorney's Office, Ron Barnes from Development Services Department, Inger Welch out of our office, Procurement Services, and certainly the consultant from Prague. It's just an amazing job. This has not been done anywhere, and this one went really, really smoothly. And this is the 3rd one of 3. So with that, Procurement Services does recommend approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner Chris to approve item B10. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Lastly, item B11 is just a housekeeping item. It's just asking the board to acknowledge and approve a noted minor correction to a previous agenda item. There is no change in the award amount.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Chris to approve item B11. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Great job.
Takes us to item F2, which is Commissioner Murman's item.
This is the Good Government Award, and I'm just requesting approval of the 2018 Ellsworth G. Simmons Good Government Award Selection Committee's recommendation of former Sheriff David G. as this year's recipient.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner White. Oh, actually, pass the gavel.
Oh, okay. I've got the gavel. We have a motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Miller.
It's actually my motion.
Okay. We have a motion by,
So my motion, he seconds.
okay,
All in
Commissioner White,
favor.
second. All in favor? Or actually, open the board for a vote. Okay.
Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you.
7-0.
And item G1 is the Head Start monthly report.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jenkins, Head Start, Early Head Start. Federal government thanks you, and so do I. I can answer any questions.
Move approval.
A motion by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Hagan on item G1. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
And lastly, your last item is G2, verbal update on legislative issues.
Move approval.
Commissioners,
Excellent presentation.
Sorry,
Thank you.
excellent presentation.
Thank you very much. This is a 1-hour presentation, but I'll condense it down to 1 minute. Just wanted to give you an update on the legislative session. As you know, it extended sine die into Sunday, but they passed, finally finished. The county received $6.335 million worth of appropriation asks for the Big Bend interchange improvements, the new Tampa Cultural Arts Center and Regional Emergency Needs Shelter, and the South Coast Trail Enhancement Project. A huge thanks goes out to our contract team and Jim Taylor and their folks for getting that together, including the department leadership. And I need to also recognize Commissioner Murman. Your leadership on these projects and going to Tallahassee and making those phone calls was critical to getting those funds. So thank you for your leadership on that. In terms of policy, a lot of the things that were going on during session in terms of preemption and unfunded mandates were fortunately not passed. The Senate was stalwart in helping us in that process. There was an attempt to revive gaming at the end of session. The last week of session, they tried to go into a conference committee. They couldn't reach any kind of consensus, so that issue will once again rear its head next year. Jumping over end of last week, we sent over communication that I sent on behalf of the county administrator to the state about opportunity zones. That is a new federal program that was instituted through the tax reform bill passed by Congress and signed by the President in December of 2017. It creates a new process and a new vehicle for investment into low-income and other qualified contiguous communities. The governors of each state get to identify up to a quarter of the eligible census tracts. In Florida, that represents about 427. He had received input from a variety of sources. We submitted based on input from our economic development folks, and the zones have to meet poverty levels, but they also have to meet areas where there's significant economic opportunity, where there's been layoffs of jobs. And so the areas that were recommended by the county were those in the university area community, and then sections of Ybor, the Port, and Palm River communities. The benefit is that it provides private sector a vehicle for investing in those areas over long terms. They get tax benefits at 5, 7, and 10 years. There is no federal money used in this process. This is strictly a funding vehicle. Finally, just a quick update on the Constitutional Revision Commission. You spoke of it earlier. They are in session all the way through next Tuesday, going through those bills that are on their special order calendar. There are currently 24 bills that are still available, but amendments are being filed and going through fast and furiously. There was an amendment passed the other day that would prohibit local governments from acquiring a lobbying firm to help get appropriations. We'll see if that stays, but that was passed by a 17-15 vote 2 days ago. The process for that, CRC has to now go through a drafting and styling process before final approval and submission to the ballot. Anything that goes to the ballot has to be approved by 22 of the 37 members of the CRC. We'll keep you informed of other things that are occurring. We're monitoring those meetings as they continue. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I see no questions. Good job.
Thank you.
And I just want to mention for the record that, as I said in my briefing with you, if we hadn't been pushed last week to get those opportunity zone recommendations to the governor, I would have brought it today. But I think the governor's making his decisions today. So
Right.
we did the best we could. I hope it's consistent with what you're thinking. But
Yeah, a very short time frame in both areas, much
Yeah.
needed,
Yeah,
both
okay.
areas. So.
Thank you,
it's
Brandon.
Very
Great job.
good. Good move.
That's it, other than future discussion items.
I have one that I forgot to do in the CareerSource thing, and that was the policy we have in board policy about the residency for all these boards we have. It doesn't require them to reside in Hillsborough County. So I'd like to ask the county attorney to look at this and come back to us with a change in that, because I do think they should reside in Hillsborough County, especially the CareerSource Tampa Bay. So anyway, that's my future issue. Commissioner Miller? I thought you had your hand raised. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we're done.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.